Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto x Femmes abuse a konoha. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Rias Caldwell and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Night of Ninetales attack. Ashina glared at the man in front of her as the last of her strength gave out. This was her end it seemed. The Ninetales would kill her if she even fought back in her condition, and it seems that my little Naruto will be led into a world of lies. She frowned as she felt the numbing grip of death. Sorry Danzo-sensei, it seems I wasn't able to bring peace to the ninja world. Maybe Naruto could pick up my will. Spoken words went unheard as one Saratobi Hiruzen walked away from the clearing, stepping over Minato's dead body, a large seal smoking on his stomach. Serves the blonde bastard right. Her head fell back as she lost the battle for control of her body. She would miss the chances to train and teach Naruto the ways of life and the duty a ninja was inclined to. She only wished that the world would be kind to her child. She gave one last look to her child as the light dimmed. I love you Naruto, her final words disappearing in the wind of the now finished battle. Millennia ago. One Hagoromo Otsutsuki lay motionless in death on his bed, the two angry brothers walking out different doors. A putrid evil energy of purple shrouding the elder. Present day. The boy with long flat red hair and clear purple eyes sat in a clearing, his body leaning over an old and worn-out scroll, a large silver and crystal gourd filled with water attached to his back, the black kanji for love and then another for family covering its side. He wore a neck-tall black jacket that had a silver zipper going up and down the center, the jacket covered a black shirt. The torso was complemented by a black pair of pants that ended just above the black shinobi boots he wore, showing just a small sliver of his near-white skin, and last were his hands garbed in gloves of a dark material. The outfit was detailed by a few small satchels attached near his waist. Star. One Naruto Sumeragi glared at a large scroll as he let his chakra ooze from his body. The purple energy faintly illuminated the clearing as he searched for a useful jutsu to learn. He knew this was a false hope as there was no real retake, the traitor Mizuki had slipped up. But to Naruto this was the perfect chance for him to learn a jutsu strong enough to kill this pathetic village and everyone in it. They would pay for tormenting him his whole life. Naruto's eyes fell onto another jutsu. Something that required a vast amount of chakra and could only be used once every week. It was called Tamash plus Oshmmm, or the Drained Soul Jutsu. What had caught Naruto's eye wasn't the name or chakra requirement but the jutsu's ability. Using the palms as a medium, the caster may steal a person's life. Not only killing but can selectively rob the memories of the victim. Can't be used consecutively, blah blah blah, can potentially kill the user if performed too many times in a row. Well, you know what I'm gonna learn. Add this to a few of them shadow clones I learned from Ani-san. I could kill so many villagers and nobody would know who it was because the clones could simply disappear. Naruto noticed his strange bloodlust arise and quickly clamped down on it. It wouldn't do for him to have lost control over his emotions and destroy the forest, as well as let any of the Hokages and be aware of his location. He huffed as he scanned the older scroll as he read further into the scroll. He then came across a Doton jutsu with a weird name. It was called Earth Style. Earth Spear. Yet the jutsu is for defensive use. That's animalistic to a T. He shook his head as he summoned up some clones to learn for him. The young boy yawned as he waited for the traitor. Before long the boy fell asleep after leaving a clone for him to stay safe. Naruto eventually woke back up when his clone dispelled himself, Mizuki having arrived. Naruto coughed as he sat up, the sound of the man appearing on top of the tree in front of him. Maybe if I put my skills to it, I can lead the pathetic monkey into thinking I'm still loyal to the leaf. He then put on his mask of indifference as he walked towards the traitor. He then smirked as he heard the gasp of the Chunin as he appeared behind the silver-haired man. Shunshin. Boo, but how? His words died as an increasingly painful burn formed at his back. Then he felt it, a pain that surpassed the body's physical capabilities, but as soon he felt it, it was gone as a dark red and purple light was the last thing he saw with Naruto's words hitting him, not quite. And that is, he was interrupted as a man with a shady disposition appeared. His right arm was wrapped in a golden sealing brace, his right eye was wrapped as well. Naruto could sense the man's wisdom, or rather could see it on his features. The strange mouths on his hands were chattering, meaning they could sense the man's chakra capacity. The boy slowly reached behind him to grab the container's lid. A tongue running across the crystal surface. What do you want, old man? The elder ninja smiled, waving his hand in a calming motion. Danzo Shimura had come to redeem himself for failing his student. His favorite student at that. I come with no ill intent, boy, in fact, I would have been the closest thing to a grandfather for you. That fool Saratobi has lied to you your whole life. I have come to enlighten you and seek redemption. All I ask of you is to follow me. The Anbu will arrive soon and it will only pose more problems. Naruto took a split second to decide. Imprisonment by that stupid monkey that called himself Hokage, or escape with a stranger that was holding too many secrets in his head? The answer was pretty obvious. 1 week later. Day of team listings. Naruto leaned back against the back wall as he thought of the past week and the huge load of information. He had an important role model. The Hokage was a corrupt and evil bastard that wouldn't die until he saw Naruto turned into an emotionless tool for Konoha, or simply loyal to it more than anything else. His mother was a beautiful and graceful woman that was nearly as powerful as Danzo himself, his gifts notwithstanding. Makoto Uchiha, the only woman to ever be even close to a mother for Naruto as well as his first crush, was another student of his. This meant that there was of course another, final student. The older man had immediately dodged the question, something Naruto would have to remedy that in the future. The man had helped him fake the destruction of the Forbidden Scroll, tricking the old man. It had been so easy and so simple. However, Naruto had learned that the quickest way to power and forcing Konoha to obey him was becoming Hokage. He had proposed they simply kill the old monkey when Naruto was stronger. Kill him, with no allegiances to the village. Quick and honest murder. But that would lead to a mass uprising, and me and Danzo could only fight so long after killing a Kage. He is called the Kami no Shinobi for a reason. Regardless of his moral ethics. A thought that sickened the boy more than Ramen. Naruto though knew any good plan would take time and was well thought out. He could just aim to become Hokage the easy yet hard way. Kill Hiruzen as a Konoha shinobi and forcibly take over the village. Naruto had also been granted control of the root forces Danzo had at his command. A plus if the people of the village didn't enjoy him as the new Hokage. But this was years from now. Danzo had made it clear and simple that all Naruto had to do was stay in good favor of the village and grow stronger, essentially working from the shadows, like his mother the Red Shadow. Being stronger to Naruto, this meant many things. Making Itachi pay, making the villagers pay, making the world pay. These were all very possible objectives when a person was in possession of a massive pool of potent chakra that only needed proper tempering. But Danzo, that was something he would have without a doubt. But Naruto didn't need to rely on the scroll, his own skills with his special chakra made him lethal enough as it was. Who am I kidding, I'm only a chunin at best. With more than a handful of S rank and many kenjutsu and the means to use them, he was practically invulnerable in time at least, but to not use the many jutsu was a stupid act. Team 7. Naruto Sumeragi, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto was thus broken from his thoughts via his name and the name of the one person he hated more than the world being announced. That bastard has been moaning and groaning about the loss of his family. He looked down at the back of Sasuke's head, the urge to kick it increasing. He doesn't know the pain of having finally gotten some form of family, only to have it taken away. Naruto ignored the pain as he dug his nails into the desk, the sound of wood cracking at a barely audible level, making Shikamaru wake up. When the lazy boy noticed this, he took one quick look at the side of Naruto's face and immediately ignored everything and went to sleep. He knew Naruto was a bit loose with his feelings towards others, but when he held it in, it doubtlessly made being next to him the worst location on the planet. Unless you were his only friend, which gave you a small but still present chance at surviving his rage. This moment was no different and Naruto broke a piece of the table. That meant he was very angry. At least he isn't threatening you for coffee or spiced meat. With that final thought, the Nara heir went back to sleep. Naruto was getting fed up because of many reasons. First, being in the same room, no same village as Sasuke. 2 was Sakura's incessant voice as she practically drooled at the sight of her precious Sasuke. So when their teacher, one Kakashi Haddock, appeared, he immediately let go of the broken desk as his hands went rigid from lack of an object to crush. My first impression is you're all depressing, meet me on the roof. The man was actually surprised when he finished sunshining to the roof, the retreat waiting. It was only 2 minutes later when the other two appeared. Alright, now that we are all here we should get to know each other. Say your name, likes, dislikes, dreams and so on and so forth. His eyes rested on the redhead. How about you first? Naruto rolled his head to the side as he let out a sigh. But of course, my name is Naruto Sumeragi, though I'm not entirely sure if that is my actual surname. And it was somewhat true, Danzo having revealed his name. The change though, this was Danzo's way of making sure that Naruto was truly safe. The fourth's name was dangerous of course, but the name Uzumaki was still a feared while near extinct clan. Thus a new and strong name was needed. Kakashi's eyes narrowed just the slightest, beyond notice of his new team. I don't particularly like anything, although I do love coffee and spiced meats and can suffer outbursts when I don't get a cup each morning, withdrawals and all that. I hate many things, too many to truly go into detail. Of course it would bore you no doubt. I hate bigots, people that abuse me, or rather try to. Kakashi smirked under his mask, now knowing Naruto's coping mechanism. His voice turned to a barely noticeable mumble. Not like any would survive anymore. His voice rose back up. I despise those that abandon others, and while I don't hate it, I don't hold much love for this village. As for dreams, Naruto closed his eyes as he laid back against the cement rooftop. Well, they are ambitious as well as my own knowledge. Kakashi nodded. It was the type of response meant to give out seemingly a lot and then just cut of the flow. Smart for a fresh-faced genin. Next then, Pinky, you're up. The girl's eyes widened before she nodded. Well, I like her eyes, finished the sentence as she looked at the last Uchiha. This kept going until it landed on dislikes. Her gaze became narrow as she looked at the laying form of Naruto. I dislike Naruto Baka. This made Naruto chuckle as he rolled over onto his side facing away from the trio. Haters gonna hate. Kakashi shook his head as he motioned for Sakura to continue, the girl holding a barely contained rage. My dreams are to be with Sasuke. To this Naruto again chuckled before going silent once more. Kakashi ignored the boy and pointed to Sasuke. Gloom and doom, you're up. The boy didn't get a chance to speak before Naruto motioned with his hand. Kakashi's eyes widened as a masked ninja appeared before disappearing, leaving only a small drinking container. He hadn't even sensed her until the woman was already disappearing. Before he was able to talk, Naruto was already waving goodbye and sipping his drink. Coffee, surely the drink of the gods. His cheer was cut short as Kakashi's interrogation began. Naruto, however, quickly brushed it off, answering instead with a steady but veiled look. Every ninja is entitled to their secrets. With that, Naruto threw the plastic container at Sasuke's head, knocking him out with a bloody nose. Ah. Naruto Baka, what the hell are you thinking? Naruto shrugged as he rolled away from her fist, making her cry out in pain as she slammed the hard cement roof material. That was your fault, next time don't try to hit me. He pulled himself up as he came to a sitting position. Kakashi shook his head again. Tomorrow meet me at training ground 7 at say 7:30. There we will see if you have what it takes to be a real ninja. Naruto shook his head with a shrug before disappearing with a glow of purple. Root HQ. Naruto shook his head as a duo of masked ninja kneeled before disappearing from his room. That was another perk he had. The two guards would watch his stuff while he was away and would check back every other hour and a quarter. But the sigh, Naruto slid back into his beige sofa, the soft comfort releasing a bit of tension. Why must I be placed in a little group of genin? He shook his head as he offed his boots, the black apparel hitting the wall with two dull thuds. He shook his head of a thought at it being potentially beneficial. No, it's not going to increase my skills, I'm already chunin level. Teams are pointless, especially when they are both weaker than me. He ran a pale finger along the thread lining of the cushion. I am being trained by Danzo, someone who was blessed by the Uchiha for his ties to the clan, someone who is on par with the Hokage. His voice uttered the word with utmost disdain. He shook his head. All of this planning for revenge was annoying. Honestly, I wish my childhood was normal, now more than ever. His eyes looked over at the small shrine headed by a picture of his mother smiling, her stomach showing the early signs of childbirth. At teasing Mikoto right behind her left shoulder, a blackish blue-haired man standing to the side, his eyes a pale almost pink, red. Naruto smiled at the look of a young Itachi smiling with his hand holding his mother's. His eyes rested on the last detail worth remarking. A lone pink eye topped by a head of black and pale blonde hair peeked through the gaps in between the man and his arm. Team Danzo, he whispered, his eyes tearing up again at the sight of his dead mother. I wish you were here, Mothra, more than ever. He looked up away as A felt tears surfacing. One day, mother. He clenched his fist shut, clutching the couch's material, a burning ambition showing in his eyes as he looked at it once more. I'll use every bit of my power to find a way to bring you back. Next morning. Naruto yawned as he popped his next free of discomfort, a satisfying noise echoing in his small room. He shook his head clear as he looked at the large antique clock he had asked for, the three pendulums making a noise as they passed back and forth. It was nearly 7, giving him plenty of time for a shower and a quick stretch. He reached for his boots and his glass container before standing up and walking to the closet, pulling out a fresh set of clothes no different than the ones before. He'd worn this outfit since Mikoto gave him the first set upon his 8th birthday. Since then he'd worn out and grown through a total of 27 sets. He loved these clothes. He sighed as he pulled the clothes hanger off of the metal pole suspending them and closed the closet door. Danzo's personal quarters. Danzo sighed, his mind tired and weary from his hidden machinations against his one-time teammate. He was usually unrestricted, but now that Naruto was in the picture he'd need to be careful. Kushina would burst from the Shinigami's stomach to kill him if he was harmed. Lest it not come to that, Sorella, his words came to a small chuckle. He gazed back at the papers in his hand. Naruto had been placed under the copycat, Kakashi Haddock. Son of the White Fang Sakumo Haddock. Danzo shook his head as he pondered the small development. No doubt that Hiruzen is still trying to push him into Minato's pathetic shadow. The partially blind man grit his teeth. No, Kushina should have been next in line. That pathetic Jiraiya is the only reason that Minato even focused on the Hiraishin, let alone becoming Hokage of the Leaf Village. The wise man took a breath as he calmed down. He had seen the potential in Kushina, she would have been a great Hokage. Was it because of her Jinchuriki status not impacting her abilities to create friendships and bonds with others? Was it because she, like so few others, was in Uzumaki, a clan of feared shinobi? Their skills with Yuinjutsu being so advanced and refined that seals placed on a member of a family could still be used by a descendant as if it was freshly inked. Anzo honestly didn't care, Kushina was like a daughter to him, he knew she was powerful and would make a name for herself. Rather she would have if not for what happened during the Ninetales attack on that hated day. But it seems he was given a chance at redemption with Kushina's legacy, no doubt. The old man was pulled out of his thoughts as the leader of Naruto's small guard appeared. He nodded as she kneeled before him. Naruto-sama has left to his appointed team meeting. Do you wish for me to pursue? Anzo thought for a moment, but nodded. Yes, Kari, but keep your guard up. Kakashi Haddock is his so-called sensei. The words propelled Kari to action, her body vanishing in a poof of smoke, no doubt heading to watch over her charge. Let's see how that fool hears and proceeds. Team 7 Training Field. Naruto sighed silently, an amazing feat as Kakashi's remarkable hearing didn't pick it up. The scene that had caused it was none other than the reason Kakashi had ordered them to meet in these very training grounds. He had just watched as Sakura and Sasuke both ignored him after cautioning against any thoughts of attacking solo. Though it was hard to admit, Kakashi was far superior to himself and they would need to team together to get the bells. Naruto watched through the leaves and branches of the tree. Sasuke had been buried in the dirt, head sticking above it. Sakura had fallen to a weak and honestly pathetic Jinjutsu. He shook his head as he moved slowly through the trees, looping around Kakashi. When Kakashi was facing the opposite direction, he reached quietly into his tool pouch. He quietly went through hand seals before sliding into the ground, a near invisible wire sliding in after him. Unknown to Naruto, Kakashi smirked as he felt a slight shift in the dirt. You'll have to try harder, Naruto. He sidestepped as the faint glimmer of razor wire ripped through the ground. The action would have bisected the Jonin in half. But there was a reason for being in the bingo book as a S rank. Naruto cursed under his breath as he pulled a kunai out and deflected a counter of sharp shuriken. Naruto leaped backwards into the small stream behind him, disappearing beneath its surface. Sasuke took this as his chance to prove he was the better shinobi. It ended badly for the Uchiha. After Kakashi, to the untrained eye of Sasuke, disappeared, he gave a smirk of smug confidence, only to yelp out as he got yanked under the earth. Only his head still visible. You should always assure your target is dead. Shinobi don't live long when their targets live and end up killing them, now do they? To this Sasuke scowled. Kakashi's eyes opened in shock as a loud pair of roars erupted from the river face. Water style. Piercing dragon's jutsu. Kakashi leaped backwards, avoiding the striking waters as they surged across the barren training field. Kakashi's mouth went wide in shock as earth style. Stone reverse shot up in front of him, barely skewering his face. The Jonin pumped chakra into his legs, leaping away from the two water dragons. He frowned as he felt the telltale signs of a Jinjutsu try to set in. The Jonin quickly bit his lip and clenched his teeth as one of the two dragons nearly scraped his waist and tore the bells away. Kakashi almost gave out a girlish scream as he felt a fireball burn away his makeout book. He quickly confirmed the bells were still attached after he landed. The field now flooded with water and mud. Kakashi reached into his pouch as he thought. Naruto may hate his teammates, but he has just coerced his teammates into a strategy via pure action. The skill it takes to even do that at his age. He pulled out a summoning scroll, biting his lip he swiped it across the side as he continued his thoughts. He is on par with Itachi's genin days. He raised his hands as he motioned for them all to stop, the sound of the bell going off. Naruto and Sasuke waited for Sakura to emerge from the trees. When they were all facing him, he gave out a small chuckle. You did not get the bells in time, but he started as he noticed Sakura's crestfallen look as well as Sasuke's scowl. Well, your individual skills were lacking. You all actually managed to make me build up a sweat when you work together, as brief as it may be. You thus pass. Naruto scoffed as he crossed his arms. Sakura cheered and Sasuke's scowl disappeared. So it begins. Naruto thought as he watched his team start to walk away. Chapter 2. Trouble at the Grave. The moon glistened upon the lake as night silence echoed. The lack of noise was quickly broken as a loud roar echoed through the forest, followed by an explosion. Ignoring the noise, two figures slowly leapt across the shore. Both were wearing green flak vests over dark long-sleeved shirts, common to shinobi of the village hidden in the leaves. The only characteristics unusual about the group was the bundle in the shorter person's arms and the pair of seemingly glowing red eyes. The shorter of the two looked the taller figure. Mother, are you sure this is wise? If anyone in the clan found out, we'd be ruined. Father wouldn't hesitate to exile us, let alone kill us. You know as well as I do that he only married you to become the head of the Uchiha clan. He doesn't care about us. Yet why do we do this, mother? The young voice was but a whisper, but went silent when an infant's cry came from the small bundle in the dark-haired woman's arms. The two quickly came to a stop as the young bundle started to move as the little child continued to cry. There, little Naruto, I know you must miss your mother dearly. But someday you'll understand that the decision that your parents made tonight tore them apart. Another loud roar ushered itself through the trees. She kissed the baby's forehead before looking to her son. We need to keep going, Itachi. The little boy nodded. 2 weeks after the test. Naruto coughed, clearing his throat as he blinked his eyes open, the sound of his alarm clock ringing in his ears. After shutting it off he slowly rose up. After having gotten cleaned up and dressed he knelt at the shrine of his mother's image. Divine and heavenly goddess, I usually don't believe in prayers, beauty. I've been thinking it wouldn't hurt to have some heavenly grace for once in my damn life. I'm tired of all the bullshit that befalls me. Please give me a blessing, something that I can truly find a value in this world. The old man is greeted. I can tell eventually he won't be around anymore. After me won't have anything left to live for. I still live only because Mikoto asked me to get stronger. Naruto gave a mirth-filled smirk. With me being a genin and being the owner of the Forbidden Scroll, I own the collective power of the village's past. I'm strong. Mikoto, I've done what you've asked of me. He quickly felt guilty at his words. He could imagine Mikoto scolding him. When I said get stronger I meant become all-powerful, not some runt. Now quit moping. Naruto chuckled to himself before continuing his prayer. Kami, just give me a sign. There's next to nothing for me in this realm. I just want to leave and meet mother. To be with Mikoto again. The boy blew his hair up with a pout before standing up. He strangely felt lighter after the prayer. Well, guess it's time to pay my morning tribute to Mikoto's grave site. Before the massacre of the Uchiha clan at Itachi Uchiha's hands, Mikoto Uchiha had been revealed as hiding the demon boy. She wasn't banished or exiled or anything like that. No, she was simply stripped of all heritage to the Uchiha name. Besides her very genes, she was no longer an Uchiha. Along with it, she wasn't buried along with the rest of the clan, instead being given a random burial plot. While she was disowned. She wasn't a random beggar found dead in an alley. Thus she wasn't given cremation. Every morning Naruto took the money from his D-rank missions with Team 7 and would buy a bouquet of 1 half-eaty black rose, purple lavender orchids, 1 purple rose and a few amaryllis flowers. And it was always from the same store. He wouldn't risk low quality and there was only one place to get good flowers. The bell ringed as the door to the flower shop opened and the customer was quickly greeted. Ah. Naruto, my boy, so good to see you this morning. Inoichi's loud and upbeat tone was a typical occurrence for Naruto as there was only one flower shop he visited. The Yamanaka's. Naruto smiled lightly as he waved to the blonde salesman. Hey Yamanaka-san, good morning to you. He chucked as the jonin pulled out a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Sure, I have the Helfeti black rose sorrowful loss, he started as he pointed to the only black rose among the 13 roses. He then continued pointing as he did. I then have the single violet rose majestic royalty, 6 purple lavender orchids, exotic beauty, grace, and elegance. Usually for a mother or grandmother. Naruto's gaze left the bouquet as he stared at the wood floor. Inoichi gave a gentle smile. He knew about Naruto being an orphan and that Mikoto had been there for the child. Just like he knew the flowers were in the daily bouquet for Mikoto, the boy's only mother figure. Then here's the 4 Phoenix Amaryllis fresh in this morning just for your order straight from the botany fields of the village, hidden in the sand, and last, but I'm sure is far from the least stone Carlovan Meganthium blood rose straight from the lands of demon country. It signifies intense passionate emotions from the user to the receiver and is never intended for the living. Only those passed away. He looked at the sad face on Naruto. My boy, why do you torture yourself like this? Maya, the blonde man was interrupted as his younger daughter Ino came in. Who's torturing who, daddy? She quickly answered her own question. Oh hi. Wait Naruto. What are you doing here? Inoichi knew Naruto didn't like his fellow student. Inoichi had both laughed and been angry when he found out why, or in Naruto's words, your daughter is a disgrace to shinobi everywhere, all she ever does is follow around that insolent fuck Sasuke Uchiha. From there he had apologized for his opinion and told him he respected his work as a member of the I&T department. Honey, I'd ask if you left Naruto to his vices. He has a morning ritual to follow and this has lasted long enough. Naruto shook his head, waving his hand in disagreement. No, it's quite alright, she's not going anywhere soon I suppose. Inoichi quickly frowned. You sure miss her, don't you, kid? Ino raised an eyebrow at that. Who is this person they're talking about? It's not like Naruto Baka has a girlfriend. Naruto, how has Kakashi reacted to you ditching morning training each time? Does he know why? Inoichi yawned as Naruto shook his head. No, the bastard doesn't really care. But today I plan to putting Sasuke in his place. He raised his hand, the tongue sliding out of his palm licking the crystal gourd on his back. Ino shivered at the sight of his hands. Nobody at the academy liked them, however her disgust was forgotten when she heard his words about Sasuke. What do you mean put him in the dirt? Sasuke would wipe the floor with you Naruto Baka. Inoichi chuckled at his daughter Vigor. Well Naruto I believe you wouldn't want to keep her waiting any longer. Naruto nodded as he reached into his pocket for some bills he brought for purchasing the flowers. What happened next surprised Ino. No, it's on the house Naruto. As the head of the T&I've seen a bit of emotion ranging from primal feelings to well-developed emotion tempered through tragedy. I have to say what you felt and then what your feelings have grown into for her. I have to say some of it is ignorance due to your age, but the rest of it can't see it. So this time the flowers are on the house and don't worry about the price for the Karlovan Meganthium. In fact I hear that when it's placed for someone very special, sometimes you can even feel their presence around you. At this Inoichi picked up the brilliant bouquet of assorted flowers. Before he could leave the wooden shop Inoichi handed him one last thing, a seal note. He leaned into so that Ino couldn't hear. This should keep those flowers you pay so much lasting longer just set it on the gravestone. It covers a large enough area that those flowers should last a whole week without falling apart. Naruto nodded and was on his way. Ino raised her hand to her chin taking a thoughtful look. Dad why does he come here every morning? Who does he always buy those flowers for? He's done it ever since after the exam finals daddy, why does he always look dead inside when he leaves here? Inoichi simply watched through the clear glass of the doors, the young Reed holding a gentle grip on the bouquet. Sweetie, I'll tell you one thing. Those flowers that represent love and affection aren't for a girlfriend. He frowned a bit at her next remark. Ha. I knew Naruto Baka could never have a girlfriend. Then he smiled, but if a lot of them especially the Meganthium were for someone of great love, then who could they be for? Wasn't he an orphan too? He had no parents, her fist balled up in frustration. Daddy I'm gonna follow him, I want to know about this person he spends so much on. I mean every day, he buys some of the most expensive flowers we have. Those Olfadis are rare, the Phoenix Amaryllis is expensive because of trade restrictions, and purple roses are hard to grow properly, and he buys them each day no changes. I'm dying to know the deal. Before she even finished the sentence she was out of the shop. Inoichi's arm grabbing only the air. Damn it, I know he won't take kindly to it. But I trust both of them not to do anything too rash. He ruffled his hair in aggravation. Naruto's red hair swayed as he took gentle steps, deep in thought. He usually left at the first sign of someone else entering the shop, quickly paying his bill and heading out. It was usually Ino's voice that followed after. Sometimes it was other employees asking about something or other. To be honest if there was one person that didn't aggravate him like the rest of the class it was strangely her. I usually just leave, I wonder why I didn't do it today he stopped as he saw a shadow cast across his form. What's with the flowers, freak? Naruto looked up at the trio of leaf shinobi all Chunin rank. I may think I'm all the rage and whatnot but I can't fuck with 3 Chunin. I'd get maybe one of them then the other 2 would put me 6 feet under. Naruto glared back at them, none of you business. Apparently this wasn't the correct answer as the man quickly went to grab the said flowers. This was not the correct action on their part. Naruto quickly pulled them away before any damage could befall the bouquet. He then followed up by unleashing his violet energy as a barrier. When the Chunin that started everything went to strike him his right hand was quickly cut off, followed by his head and then his left arm. Naruto saw this as his chance to get away. But before he could run a firm hand stopped him in his tracks. The hand was connected to a man that was very tall person. If Naruto were to guess he would say he was about 7 feet tall and packed with muscles. He had dull black hair that spiked out from the back but was combed back at the front. He had a wide Anbu mask symbolic of his membership to Root. He wore standard Anbu gear. Naruto-sama there's no need to worry about these cretins, we will have it cleaned up before anyone notices, bless the early morning. Now I believe you were heading somewhere. Don't let this rabble stop you. He then ushered the bow on his way. Leading him in the direction he was headed. Naruto nodded as he checked that the bouquet was untouched. Finding it was he smiled slightly before he resumed walking. As he passed by he saw 2 more Root Anbu. One was a woman with purple hair and silver eyes complement her dark matcha skin, the hair was done up in 2 ponytails, one at the low back and another above that. She wore a shirt under her Anbu vest that had sleeves that hid her hands. On her waist she had 2 blades on the same side. The last of the trio was a man a bit shorter than the woman, he had pale skin. He wore the standard Anbu vest with a single-sleeved short. As he walked by both bowed with a faint Naruto-sama as he passed them. Ino gave a slight gasp at what she had seen in the morning's slow rising glow. It seemed like Naruto was going to be in a scuffle of some sort only for 3 shinobi to quickly cut down the 3-leaf shinobi. Then they let Naruto go, but that wasn't the weirdest part they were bowing to him as he kept walking. What the hell is Naruto Baka up to? Why are Anbu bowing? Her thoughts were stopped as a rough hand wrapped in metal seal braces grabbed her shoulder. She almost screamed in surprise until another hand covered her mouth. Silence, Ino Yamanaka. I will remove my hand from your mouth. If you scream I will not hesitate to make you disappear. Ino nodded, her eyes full of fear. As he said he would, the elderly man removed his hand from her. Now, tell me, why were you following Naruto? She took a moment to calm her rapidly beating heart before speaking. Well, I just wanted to find out why he was always coming in early morning, paying so much for rare flowers. He does it every morning. As a person who has been around flowers nearly my whole life, I know he shouldn't come back every morning, as the last bouquet still hasn't wilted away. Isn't that wasteful? The older man just chuckled at her. Have you ever thought that the person he gets them for is more important to him than monetary gain? Ino's eyes closed as she thought about it. But Naruto doesn't have anyone close to him, he is an orphan and nobody likes him. Even Shikamaru doesn't talk to him much. Two of the Anbu soon arrived to stand behind the old man. Sir, we've the bigger one stopped talking as the elder of the trio motioned to be quiet with his hand. Yamanaka-san, I see in you a strong will of fire. You may be young and thus prone to love as you so put it for Sasuke Uchiha, but coming from a clan you will most definitely grow out of it. Ino suddenly felt very uncomfortable around this man. How do you know I like Sasuke-kun? Ino had never met this man. Oh, do not worry, Yamanaka-san, I know plenty. I am in the place to give you training that would make you very strong. You could gain the strength to make your dear Sasuke fall head over heels for you. Ino narrowed her eyes. Something isn't right here. I am Danzo Shimura, and for the last 2 weeks I have been using a subtle genjutsu on Naruto. It has slowly changed him on a subconscious level. I've made him think of you as a trustworthy person. Someone he could maybe befriend someday. Ino Yamanaka, open your mouth. To this Ino gave a startled look at the man. It is merely so you cannot speak about this morning unless I allow you to. No, I'm not going to cut out your tongue. What the hell is going on? Ino's mind was running a mile a minute trying to figure out why this man would say so many weird things. Dear girl. I simply wish to make you the foundation to Naruto's world. Something for him to live for. As I stand here before you I know I am the last thing that keeps him alive. Everything he loved was ripped from him on the night of the Uchiha massacre. He coughed into his hand and looked up as if listening to something. He then motioned to the pale, short. Go make sure she doesn't interfere with him. The brunette nodded as he leapt to the rooftops. Now open your mouth and stick your tongue out. What I'm about to tell you cannot be spoken of and I'm not willing to risk you spreading this information. Ino hesitantly nodded to him before looking at the large and imposing Anbu next to Danzo. I'm likely to die if I don't comply. She stuck out her tongue. Naruto cursed himself as he realized he had walked right past the other members of Team 7. He ignored them, but Sasuke had been following him since he turned the corner. He must think I can't sense him following me. PFFT, as if this turn of events had admittedly drawn out Naruto's cruel side, he would lead Sasuke to his mother's grave. And then I will fuck with his head. He thinks he is indestructible. Naruto passed a corner of a shop that led a view to a wide open plain, stone grave markers littering the land. After a few more minutes of walking, gently holding the bouquet he came to his spot. Naruto waited till Sasuke was close enough to him to hear his words, he smiled as tears rose in his eyes. Good morning Makoto, I brought more flowers today. He heard Sasuke's breath catch in his throat. The Redeed smirked, isn't it a good morning Sasuke? Naruto could feel the ravenet grinding his teeth. Why are you here, loser, you don't belong here. While she was disowned she is still Uchiha blood, you are beneath her. You don't deserve to be in her presence. A chuckle was Naruto's response, the boy slowly placed the flowers among the other bouquets. Oh, really? Yet it seems she gave up everything to take care of Might would look as if she had lowered herself in status, quite willingly if I remember right. Seems that good for nothing clan of ingrates isn't so bad after all. Hook, line, sinker. Naruto leaned to the left, Sasuke's kunai passing by his head. When the single strand of red hair landed on the ground Naruto took action. Sasuke made a quick jump back dodging Naruto's axe drop kick. The missed blow left a small enough opening for Sasuke to get a kick jab to Naruto's shoulder. Naruto lost his balance briefly before he leaned back as Sasuke gave a return kick that flew through the air. A loud thwack was heard when Naruto's fist struck the Uchiha's chin in retaliation. Grunting, the Uchiha grabbed the offending fist as he felt a slow drain start on his chakra. Naruto coughed as Sasuke pulled him into kneeing range and placed said joint into the Redeed's gut. Shit, he hits harder than I thought he would, but he uncorked the crystal gourd as he drew his arms forward. A torrent of water burst forth as the gourd was drained of its contents. I'm still better than you. All of the water summoned by Naruto formed into multiple long spears all aimed at Sasuke. Unceremoniously all of the spears started firing at Sasuke, forcing the young genin to leap and dodge to avoid being skewered by the deadly onslaught. After a few minutes of non-stop movement, Sasuke was fed up. He rushed through a set of hand seals, fire style. Fireball jutsu. The geyser of flames licked the noon sky, boiling the water as it flew through the air. Naruto grunted as all of his water was turned into dense steam. Naruto loosed his violet energy to get a feel for his surroundings. But what he saw amazed him himself. I can't see anything yet, why is everything so clear? Naruto cursed, his view had gotten clear enough using his energy that he saw several pouches of some kind flying at him. However, they all exploded before he could react. The result was an unspeakable pain as the internal liquid burned at the teen's eyes. This burning pain dropped Naruto's focus of his energy and caused him to fumble to the ground, trying to remove the offending liquid from his eyes. How do you like that, loser? It's a liquid from the mouth of a venomous snake called the spitting cobra, one drop to the eyes and it's lights out forever. You can't wash this stuff out. He finished his words with a rough kick to Naruto's side. Naruto bit his tongue, fighting the pain coming from his eyes as he grabbed Sasuke's leg before the Ravenet could pull back his leg for another attack. Using the momentum from the motion, he pulled Sasuke over and used his own leg to strike the Ravenet in the back as he let go. The redeed then followed up by reaching out to grip Sasuke's leg, throwing the Uchiha away from him. By this point in the fight, the steam had condensed and small puddles of water showed up. Naruto could feel them as if it were another part of him. My eyes may be damaged, but I can still see you well enough to kill you. You fucked up when you attacked me. Naruto expelled his energy in a visual manner as he slowly walked towards Sasuke, who was still getting up. Naruto, however, had found a new reason to hate the Uchiha. With his energy, he was able to see around him in a fashion similar to that of a Hyuga's Byakugan. Sasuke's fireball had burned away all of the flowers he had laid for Mikoto. Naruto's voice became a chilling tone as a figure of some sort formed within the energy. The only thing Sasuke could describe it as was a demoness come to life. I'm going to kill you now, Sasuke. I hope you prayed to your gods this morning because the Uchiha name ends here. Naruto's powers made the water swirl around him twice before he went to launch them at his fellow genin. The water swiftly began to encase Sasuke in its liquid embrace, causing the genin to panic as he couldn't move any longer, he couldn't breathe any longer. Naruto went to make a fist as he shouted in anger, "Die." That's when Kakashi appeared. The jonin quickly hit Naruto in the back of the neck, rendering him unconscious. Subsequently, the water surrounding Sasuke fell away from the boy, dropping him on his rear. He too was unconscious from not being able to breathe for so long. Hokage-sama isn't gonna like this, well, I best take them to the hospital first. So you're telling me, a proud, strong woman like Mikoto Uchiha gave up next to everything she had simply to raise Naruto? Why? Ino spoke, her arms crossed as Danzo and his root soldier stood next to her. Danzo had explained to her Naruto's early life, his troubles, and his neglect from the Hokage. The entire time using Kodo Amatsukami to slowly and carefully leave false thoughts and memories so that she would, in essence, belong to Naruto. While Danzo was sure of the Jinjutsu's abilities, he had placed a curse seal on the young Kunoichi's tongue so that she wouldn't spill any information. Well, at first, it had been that Naruto's mother had asked him to. But Danzo stopped talking as he coughed roughly into his hand. As time progressed, I can only imagine it's because she came to see him as her very own son. Or he noticed the look in Ino's eyes as she became interested in what he was going to say next. Well, to understand the next possibility. Naruto as a child was always very mature for his age, he was quite respectful, vastly intelligent. Calm. He was in all regards the perfect child, and oh did he love Mikoto. Ino raised her eyebrow at that. You mean like a mother or sibling, right? Danzo shook his head. No, he loved her as if she was the world itself, and if the second possibility she saw him in the same regard. A touch weird if I say myself. But her young Lefei won't judge her for her thoughts and feelings after what she went through. He raised his hand in a dismissive manner at the look Ino gave. Not a topic for me to discuss, even Naruto doesn't know about it. However, besides her eldest Itachi and Naruto's mother, Mikoto had nothing going for her. Sure, she had the money from her clan. She had a high opinion from the people of Konoha. Until she was found out, that is. She truly lost everything that night. Save for Itachi and Naruto. With Itachi in the Anbu Black Ops as captain at such an early age, she was left alone with Naruto for quite a bit. I assume it's during this time when they bonded so much. Danzo sighed as he prepared to continue. The next part had also made him sad, but he was nowhere near affected as much as Naruto was. Being as I said, they had a very close bond. After she was discovered caring for him, she was no longer afraid to take him out to parks. She knew at his age and because of certain reasons she would never make friends. So she took it upon herself to make his life as happy as possible. Now remember when I said that he was very mature and intelligent for his age? Ino nodded. At this point she was seeing Naruto in such a different spotlight. She no longer thought of him as the moody and creepy Redeed with tongues for palms, and her thoughts were about to change once more as Danzo continued. You know about the Uchiha massacre, how Itachi Uchiha killed his entire family save for Sasuke. Well, Naruto was there when it happened. Ino's eyes widened at that implication. You mean? He was there and… She stuttered in surprise. Danzo nodded in confirmation. Yes, Naruto saw the only person he truly, absolutely cared about get cut down before his very eyes. As a child that hadn't even learned how to mold his chakra, he didn't have a chance at saving her. He let out a breath as he paused. Naruto told me he only assumed that he was spared because Itachi knew that he was the most important thing to Mikoto. Even more than her own flesh and blood. Naruto told me he cried so much it could have filled his gourd. Oh, you don't know about the gourd's importance, do you? The blonde shook her head. She didn't, but whenever she saw Naruto it was always with him. You see, that gourd was a gift from Mikoto to Naruto, the very last thing he ever received from her. It is a gift he will never keep more than a few feet from him. Ino nodded at him. Danzo smirked on the inside. It seems she has accepted everything swimmingly. Time to make the final push. So young lady, what is your opinion of Naruto? He isn't so much a loser as you thought he was now, is he? Ino shook her head. No, not at all. In fact, I admire how strong he is to handle the attempts on his life and all of his loss. Actually, I want to make sure he is happy. That he never has to experience such heartbreak again. Her eyes burned with resolve. Danzo put his hand over his eye. It's so simply to change a person's opinion with this eye. Now to finish it. What would you do for Naruto to ensure that nothing bad would happen to him ever again? Ino's hands turned to fists as she stood firm, everything and anything. Naruto coughed as he awoke, everything was black. He then remembered the snake venom. He looked around after a few tries with his energy. It didn't take long to figure out where he was and what the colors of the room were. Hospital white. He groaned. Hospitals were dreadful and he hated them. Or rather, he hated the people in them. Twice on separate times people had tried to kill him with poisons. He smiled. Twice on separate times the perpetrators had gotten their head put through the door. Courtesy of one Mikoto Uchiha. Oh, you insolent little punk. If you aren't dead you're going to wish you were. Defiling Mikoto's grave is something that you pay for with your life. Naruto frowned. He hated thinking of her gone. He always missed her. Her smile. Her laugh when he would ask so many questions during supper. Her soothing voice when it was bedtime and she would read him a bedtime story. That she's dead. Naruto rolled over trying not to think of the past. Luckily Naruto's thoughts were broken for him. The dark-skinned root member from earlier walked in. She immediately dropped to her knees, putting her masked forehead to the floor. Naruto-sama, I'm so sorry about what happened to your eyes. Naruto went wide-eyed at her proclamation. Why would she be sorry? She had nothing to do with it. Well, she's a root member, maybe she feels guilty for not being able to protect me. He shook his head. There is no need for you to be sorry. The girl's body noticeably tensed at that before she looked up at Naruto. I assume you feel some preconceived notion that my concurrent blindness is entirely your fault. His gaze landed on her masked face as she nodded. Well, allow me to ease your discomfort, it is most certainly not your fault. He scowled at nothing. In fact, the fault is entirely that of one arrogant, soon-to-be dead, Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto could see the female looking at him in question. But I… Her words were silenced when the door opened, revealing Danzo and the other two Anbu. Are not at fault, my dear. Well, yes, you could have done as your job entails, you did not. As I asked you not to. Naruto, my boy, well, not under the best of circumstances to introduce them. These three are your personal guards. Thus is why she was making such a ruckus. She believes she failed you by not eviscerating the young Uchiha. I assure you, it isn't your fault, my dear. I asked you not to interfere. Well, I knew he would prevail in some manner. Danzo looked Naruto straight in the face. I expected you to wipe the floor with the boy, not suffer such a wound as blindness. This is a large step back in you succeeding me. It will take much more time to train you now that you're blind. The man sighed as he scratched the top of his head. Naruto chuckled. No, I ain't blind, old man, my eyes just don't work anymore. All thanks to my powers. To prove his point, he flooded the room with his energy, leaving a very faint pink tint to the air. With a strange chakra touching every facet of the room, he could see it all. Compared to his natural vision, the energy provided him with a pseudo-omniscient view of the world. As long as his chakra touched it, he could see it. So it seems, if you believe your vision is truly not impaired, then so be it. Now on to formal introductions. Naruto, this is Kari Izushi, the captain of your personal guard. The blue-haired one is Tetsuo Kuriata, and the large one is Seijin Kagamaru. They are my strongest root next to Torin and Fu, and I have charged them with the task of keeping you safe if it comes to it. After today I will have them intervene upon any conflict if you do not order them to stand down. He turned to walk out of the room. I gave you today's conflict so that hopefully you would learn a small amount of humiliation and get any thoughts that nobody can touch you or that you're all powerful. You are not. You are human and can die from something as simple as a broken nose to a measly paper cut infection. Before I leave you should remember to drop by the Hokage's office. Sakura Haruno was here looking for you. It seems the Hokage is none too happy about you and the young Uchiha's confrontation. These three will be hiding near you at all times, except while you're inside of our headquarters. I will see you later tonight, Naruto. With that, the village elder closed the door behind him. What stood before him was one Ino Yamanaka in black Anbu clothing minus the vest and mask, a short black cloak covering her back and shoulders, while parting down the center of her torso, reaching down to the level of her navel. He placed his hand on her shoulder. You see, he needs someone to be there for him. To be his guardian and to be his light. No matter the means, you are to appease him and keep him sane and out of depression. I would be devastated if the boy fell to pieces at such a young age. While I ask this, I want you to realize I do not ask you to love him. But to merely give your being to ensure his own. If he is to ever find true love, do not get in the way. Ino nodded with a firm bow. Yes, Danzo-sama. My only goal is to make his entire life as grand and enjoyable as possible. Her face showed dedication and a brief glimmer of bliss at the thought of living her life in servitude of her master Naruto Uzumaki. It was quickly crushed with a blank face as Danzo used his grip on her shoulder to have her follow alongside him as he walked through the hall of the hospital. In due time, but first you must get stronger. I will speak with your father. It is time I spoke to Naruto's godfather. Until then, young Yamanaka, wait at home. Prepare necessities for when I come to pick you up. The young blonde nodded her head as the two rounded the corner of the hall. Hiruzen Sarutobi was looking at the report that was written up by Kakashi regarding Sasuke and Naruto's little fight. Sasuke had small unrelated issues from chakra damage that was caused by the Uchiha's apparent use of the fireball jutsu. He had overcharged his lungs when using it and had mildly scorched his insides, nothing too damaging that it couldn't be fixed with some concentrated healing and rest. The Jinchuriki, however, his eyes had been damaged beyond repair. If it had been taken care of, he would be able to see slightly well, but it had been too long to do anything about it now. Doesn't matter, all we have to do is prod the bull and open the gate. Salvageable. Now if he was missing a limb, well, Konoha's ultimate weapon would be eaten and can't spend time training what can't move. The third smiled as his assistant told him that Naruto was here as he had appointed. Send him in. Soon enough, the Reteed stumbled his way into the office. The headband was now covering Naruto's head like a bandana, the metal bar resting over his two eyes. Naruto, my boy, sit, how are you feeling? Naruto mentally scoffed, like you really care, you bastard. The Reteed smiled, then frowned. I'm fine, well, as fine as a blind person can be, but I want to rip Sasuke to pieces. The Hokage raised an eyebrow. That seems a bit aggressive for simply starting a fight, current blindness notwithstanding. This time Naruto didn't scoff mentally. If that was all he'd done, I wouldn't be tempted to hang him with his own intestines. But that is beside the point. What did you call me here for? Naruto coughed into his hand, clearing his throat slightly. Hiruzen nodded at the question. I wanted to inform you that with the Chunin exams coming up, I'm sure you'll want to join it. But as you are, it will be even harder for you than it would have been a couple of days ago. I was going to call you here today anyway, regardless of your and Sasuke's confrontation. The Chunin exam is about teamwork, as is the fundamental basics for any Leaf Shinobi. The third paused as he turned to gaze out the window, overlooking the village. I asked that you Atlas try to get along with your team so that you can partake in the exams. Naruto faked a sigh of acceptance to the proposition. Fine, but no more than is required of me. Hiruzen nodded before waving the boy away. That will be all, Naruto. The Reteed nodded before walking out. The sound of grunting and heavy breathing echoed throughout the dark confines of the underground base, a loud thwack punctuating every few moments. If one were to walk in, following the sounds, they would see the sight of Naruto Sumeragi being brutally beaten by one Danzo Shimura in what the elder of the two would seemingly call training. Naruto was to wear weighted bands on each limb and his neck. He would then be only allowed to push his body up with that single limb. While doing so, Danzo would lash out with a bakken. Naruto would be forced to either get hit or strain his body to pivot onto a new limb. Sometimes it hurt more to move than get hit. And one of those times had come up. Naruto let out a pained cry as his arm gave out as he went to flip to his left leg, his face hit the floor, and Danzo hit him in the back. Hard. Danzo nodded at the Reteed's efforts, half an hour better than the last time. It would seem either your talk with Hiruzen has changed your thoughts, or your fight with the Uchiha has lit a fire inside of you. Naruto shook off his weight for lighter ones he wore at all times. The Uchiha Naruto flexed his sore arms as he adjusted the weight's positions. Among other things. Tomorrow, after I join the circus clowns, I'll convince Kakashi and Sarutobi to give us a higher ranked mission. Get as much teamwork in before the Chunin exams. Danzo smiled faintly at the boy as he watched the boy try to lift his weakened arms to air quote, but only grunted as he dropped his arms to his side. Naruto sat cross-legged as he put his hands into a box of weighted kunai. He then pulled 10 up, one for each finger. Naruto held his arms out at length, only to sound out a curse. Fuck this. I have nigh perfect chakra control. Naruto then emphasized his point to Danzo by forming multiple black diamonds along his bare arms. Boy, how did you? Danzo was astonished at what he was looking at. This boy was using his vast reserves of chakra into minuscule points. The act alone wasn't surprising, it was the amount of diamonds. He knew Naruto's chakra control was astounding, how could it not be? He literally controlled water like it was no effort at all. But that raised the question, how did he learn of this technique? It wasn't in the Forbidden Scroll. Analytical brilliance, I do my homework. Naruto could tell Danzo wasn't buying it. The Redeed's hair moved with a sigh as he shook his head. Well, it's actually both. During my time in the academy I rarely paid attention. The few times I did was always when a large figure of history showed up, and I rarely asked questions. Tsunade's little diamond mark was one of my inquiries. I asked if it was natural. Mizuki seemed to know what it was, and thus I learned about the metodic regeneration. Concentrate chakra meant for healing into a single point, then when it's needed I release it and it forces my cells to rapidly heal. Well, my passive abilities, whatever they are from, are proficient enough as it is. This is on an entirely different level. Danzo could feel a butt coming from the boy. But I have a feeling there is more to the ability than just rapid cellular regen. It requires hand seals in the first part, otherwise I'm just letting all of my chakra out in a rush, and in the amount I store in each one, well, let me just say it's not favorable to the continuation of my arm's well-being. Furthermore, if I'm correct about basic biology and other scientific bullshit, I can use this more often than Tsunade can, and this is a mere hypothesis. I, being an Uzumaki, won't allow me to die in such a way as cells running out because of our natural longevity. I'd simply have an excess of years to rob the cells from, so if I used it frequently, I'd probably just live a normal lifespan. Naruto shook his head again. Yay, not sure how that little bit of fuck all science would work. No, we will retire for the night after I grab food and drink and slowly let all of this chakra out. Naruto turned to face Danzo. Except these two, the Redeed pointed to 2 teardrop marks under his eyes. But that the boy turned around, picking up his shirt after he left the training room. Naruto tossed his shirt to the floor as he walked past the shrine. Before he even took 2 steps he stopped and turned to face it. I'll add another candle and incense for Mikoto tomorrow before I get Sarutobi to give us a harder mission, maybe. Another prayer. Naruto yawned as he fell over onto the couch. He reached over and tapped the play button on the small radio next to him. The music started up as he lulled off to sleep as the rock music beat on. Chapter 3. Mission to WAV. Enter Kurai the Killer. Naruto coughed lightly as he woke up, a minuscule amount of dust having dried out his throat overnight. While a secret base was cool and all, the fact that a lot of it was dirt walls and floors wasn't entirely screaming fun for the lungs. The Redeed swung his legs over the couch as he stood up, rubbing his scarred eyes. He reached down and turned off the radio before walking to his closet to grab a towel and a change of clothes. He walked to the bathroom, turned on the hot water, disrobed and stepped into the warm embrace of his element. When he closed his eyes his memories ran rampant. Mikoto smiled as she watched a young Naruto and Itachi play in the forest, a basic target standing at the opposite end of the clearing. No fair, Itachi. Why are you always so good at everything? Mikoto's warm smile brightened when Naruto looked to her. Mom? Why is Itachi so better at everything than me? The Uchiha matriarch giggled at the boy, taking a sip of her tea. She shook her head in faux innocence. I don't know, why are you so much better, Itachi? Itachi took a proud stance. It's because I practice and practice till I perfect what I'm working on. I never slack off and always work hard. The elder boy's eyes softened. Yes, I admit, Naruto, some things come to me easier than others. As a prodigy most things will. But people like you, Naruto, the truly determined, will always become stronger than prodigies like me. Naruto scoffed, yay, because you can't do this. Punctuating his words, he pulled the tea from Mikoto's cup, floated over his head. And lost control of it. Itachi started laughing at the little Redeed, a pout came to Naruto's face. Mikoto tsk''d as she knelt down and used the sleeve of her black kimono to dry Naruto's face. Naruto smiled faintly as he turned the handle for the shower. After drying off and dressing he went to his closest, pulling out a lavender candle and a stick of cherry incense. Naruto took a knee in front of his shrine. He used a small match to light the candle and then used the candle to light the incense. Placing the fragrant stick into its holder, he took a large inhale. He slowly exhaled as he placed his hands together. Guess this prayer thing is worth another shot. Kami, benevolent goddess, I again ask that you pave my day with a worthy experience. Give me something. Something to give life to me once more. Naruto closed his eyes as he went to stand. He took one step forward before tripping over nothing. When his body came to rest at the phantom occurrence, his eyes rested on an item of prayer beads. It was a loosely held string bearing black and purple beads, the resembling large marbles. He knew they weren't resting there when he woke up. He always checked the shrine when he woke up. Sighing, he grabbed the beads before standing up. He rolled the beads in his hand. The Redeed looked up to the wood roof. "Oh great and divine entity, real fucking funny." Naruto held the beads as he walked towards Team 7's meeting grounds, the bridge as Kakashi lovingly called. Speaking of Kakashi, said Jonin was talking to Sasuke and Sakura as the Redeed approached. "See, I told you he would show up, Sakura. Now we can start Team Xer." He didn't get to finish. Trial by fire. Naruto placed the beads into one of the satchels at his waist before continuing. Kakashi's eyebrow quirked up at the phrase. Naruto took this as a sign to explain. "Sensei, you believe we should work on teamwork? I say we do our first C rank." "Well, I begrudgingly admit this, Sasuke can hold his own. I can't say the same for the bookworm, but I believe we should actively work on our teamwork skills while on mission. In my opinion, it will allow us to learn at a far better pace than drills. If we mess up, you tell us what we did wrong, how to improve, so on and so forth." Kakashi chuckled as he agreed with the boy's thoughts. "I was actually going to propose the idea of taking part in Team 7's first C rank. You however rarely showed up, thus making it difficult to do so." Naruto simply grunted at the verbal jab. After a few moments of back and forth arguments between Naruto and Iruka, the Genin squad had been given their first C rank mission. Escort the bridge builder Tazuna to wave and provide protection as he finished the bridge so that Nami no Kuni could open trade via land. Eventually, after a few traded insults, Team 7 had found themselves on the road with Tazuna. "Kakashi-sensei, why does Wave need to hire Leaf to help them out? Doesn't it have its own ninja?" Kakashi gave a thoughtful look as he read Icha. "Well, think about it, Sakura, if it did, then why would we be necessary for protecting Tazuna-san? I believe you can find the answer yourself." Sakura eyes opened wider at that. "Oh well, yeah, I get what you mean. Guess I didn't think it out completely." Kakashi nodded with a chuckle. "To put bluntly, Wave isn't really a village, it's more of a large port founded on an island for easy water trade. Only in the last 3 decades has it become anything resembling a village. Business was booming, bringing in all kinds of people. It also had the bad luck of bringing in some less than reputable beings." Tazuna nodded nervously at that. As Naruto listened and uncaring, he spotted 2 puddles of water ahead of the group. Alarms were going off in Naruto's head immediately. To confirm his feelings, he discreetly raised his arm as if to rub his stomach. The water didn't submit to his control, and that never happened unless it was 2 things. The hallucination, in which wasn't possible as Naruto was well hydrated, not ill, and they hadn't been in the heat for very long. Not to mention Naruto couldn't hallucinate physical images as he was blind. Ninjutsu cast by a missing ninja or 2 based on that there was 2 puddles, from Kiri. Naruto noticed that Kakashi hadn't said anything yet and took that as a note that he knew but wanted to see how the team reacted to the experience and if need be could intervene. Not 2 feet away from the men, 2 men leapt from the jutsu's illusion and launched an attack. The chain connected to both of them quickly found itself wrapped around Kakashi and in no time at all the man was reduced to sliced flesh. As soon as the chain was clear, the 2 set their sights on the one closest one next. "Naruto." A shinobi with a black shirt spoke as he charged. "Now it's your turn to die." The gourd on Naruto's back gushed out and wrapped itself around his arms. "Bring it on." The 2 Kiri shinobi attempted to strike him from both sides. Naruto quickly leapt up and kicked out with his feet, hitting them both in the face. Not giving them a moment for reprieve, he fell down swiftly on the chain, pulling them back to him. Naruto tensed his arms as he compressed the water along his arms. With a roar, he let the water slam into the shinobi. The force was overwhelming and forced them apart fast enough to break the chain. However, as the chain snapped, it lashed through the air, ripping through the front of Naruto's shirt and cutting through his belt of satchels, spilling his prayer beads and tearing up his empty ones. Kakashi took this as the moment to intervene and quickly wrap things up. Well, seems it was pointless to see who they were really after. The Jonin sighed, "Can't risk a mission failure on assumptions." "Naruto," the man shook his head as he tied the 2 missing ninja up. The redhead in question merely waved a blood-covered hand in dismissal, using the other hand to throw a ball of red-black water to the ground. "Nothing major, just had a little poison in my veins." Kakashi raised an eyebrow but nodded as he saw the healed cut along the boy's stomach. "Nice reflexes either way, Naruto. You handled them very well." To that the boy just shrugged as he picked up the prayer beads and placed them over his neck. Naruto grunted as he leaned back, stretching his abdomen. With no warning, he threw 2 knives at the missing ninja. Easy shots to their immobile heads. Sakura's eyes went wide in horror. "Cut me and I kill you," were his only words as he resumed walking down the road. Before long, Sasuke was right behind him. With begrudging acceptance, the bridge builder followed after him, not wanting to stay around the dead bodies as if they would explode on the spot. Kakashi gave Naruto one more look before shaking Sakura out of her shock. Naruto was fiddling with the prayer beads around his neck as Team 7 and Tazuna sat in a small rowboat. After killing the demon brothers Naruto, Sasuke and Tazuna had resumed walking. Sakura and Kakashi had eventually followed after. Naruto stuck to his excuse for killing them, and of course Kakashi reprimanded him for his actions. Naruto didn't care. Lost in his thoughts, they had arrived at shore. He took note of the wet air, mist I'd guess. He voiced his opinion. Looking over to their charge, he asked, "I've never been out of Konoha before, but is it always this damp and misty around wave?" He watched Tazuna nod. "Yes, it is around this time of day, don't worry, my house isn't too far away from the shore." Kakashi and Sakura said their thanks to the Roman along with Tazuna before they began heading up shore. As they walked through the mist, Naruto opened his range of view as it got thicker and thicker, but the farther he tried to see, the weaker his view became till he couldn't make anything out except basic details. The boy reined in his energy as they kept walking. "This mist isn't natural, stay alert." Sakura, stay at Tazuna's back. Sasuke, you cover the front. Naruto, you stay at the front and keep an eye out. Team 7 nodded as they fell into their designated positions. Naruto grunted as they continued to walk. "Kakashi, you were right, this mist isn't natural, it's saturated with chakra." He narrowed his eyes, "and it's being controlled, act everyone down." He shouted as a large blade spun through the air. Its flight stopped as it got lodged into a tall tree. Not 3 seconds later, a tall black-haired woman with spiky hair shone to the blade's handle. She had Kiri's Aqua Black Ops jacket, a teal blue color, and was filled out by her figure. She had a black piercing in the left corner of her mouth on her bottom lip. On her left shoulder was a teardrop tattoo. At her waist on the left side were 2 kunai holsters of a beige color, on the right a black, white, and red mask hung at her side. A large black crest ran down the center of it between the eyes and to the upper lip. On the left side of the mask was red set of swirls that went from the edge to the black line. Her arms up to just above her elbows were covered in armlets that had 2 arm guards of a steel gray color, the cloth turned into thin gloves over her hands, metallic plates at their back. My. I came to kill the bridge builder, and here I find Kakashi Haddock." She stopped speaking as her honey gold eyes fell across the genin team, with her sights ending on Naruto. Kakashi grimaced as he recognized the person before him. Gurai Mamachi. Ex-leader of the Kiri Assassination Corporation, and was part of the legendary 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Gurai chuckled at that, "It seems you know of me. You're a real ninja, Haddock, unlike these pathetic children." With that, she dropped down and grabbed a long hilt of her blade. With a simple-looking tug, she ripped the sword from the tree. The tall woman's laughter seemed to echo as killing intent hit everyone among the group. "Not that I'd expect you to know of them, but there are 8 points in the body that guarantee a near-fatal blow. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys and the heart." Without warning, Kurai appeared among Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke. With her body low to the floor. "Lung." She roared as she spun around with her blade angled to jab Naruto through the chest. In Naruto's perspective, everything slowed down and he thought back to training with Danzo's root forces. In his mind, Kurai was replaced with a root ninja, Tanto, poised to run him through. Reflexes kicked in and Naruto swiftly leaned backwards. He realized, however, how slow he was compared to this jonin as he found his head had suffered a shallow cut and his headband ripped off with the sword. Kurai, not letting up for a moment, angled the blade for another swing, this time targeting Sasuke, jugular. Instead of a clean target as was present, Kakashi had snuck into her guard, a kunai embedded into the woman's gut. The sound of dripping water became audible as Kurai gave a gasp of surprise before it was replaced by a smirk appeared. "Not even." Kurai growled as her blade sliced through a water clone. With no pause, Kakashi was behind her, kunai against her throat. "It's over, Kurai. Sensei, look out." Kakashi's eyes widened as Sakura warning hit his ears. He ducked as Kurai's attack went wide. She, however, predicted this and lashed out with her leg, kicking the leaf jonin in the chest. Kakashi flew through the air and landed in the water. It only took a few seconds for Kakashi to feel the difference in the water. "No." He shouted as Kurai reappeared behind him, her hands finished a rapid sting of hand signs. "Water style. Water prison jutsu." And like that, Kakashi found himself trapped in a sphere of water. Kurai smirked under the bandages covering her mouth as she made a water clone. "Time to make you watch the kiddies die, Haddock." Sasuke grunted as he pulled a kunai out of his leg pouch. Sakura matched his action. Sakura spoke in defiance, "Not a chance." "Oh, that's adorable, you still want to play ninja. Let me tell you something, kiddies." Kakashi interrupted her. "Run. You didn't stand a chance the moment I got caught." Sakura looked to Sasuke, "Ready, Sasuke?" Apparently this was funny as Kurai's water clone let out a throaty laugh. "It seems you need to learn about the real world, kiddies, you're not ninja. You're only pretending." She raised her hands up, tensed. "By your age I'd already spilt the blood of many with these 2 hands, crushing many opponents." "Kurai, the demoness." The real Kurai looked at Kakashi's trapped form. "So you seem to know a little bit about me." Long ago in Kiri, when it was known as the Bloody Mist, to truly become a ninja there was a final test. So you knew about the graduation exam. Kurai chuckled darkly. Sakura had another stroke of brilliance. So what, we had graduation exams too. Another laugh came from the missing ninja. Did you have to kill the other students to pass? Sakura's and even Sasuke's eyes went wide at the revelation. Yes, we killed the very people we'd grown up with, the people that had the same dreams as us. We couldn't pass until there was only one person left standing. Kakashi's distorted voice spoke again. 10 years ago in Kiri, the rules about the graduation exam changed. The very year before, a girl no older than the age of 9 filled the school with terror. She, who wasn't even enrolled in the academy, had brutally and without difficulty killed all 106 students. A shadow fell over the clone's eyes as a hand ran over her own chest in a sensual fashion. It felt so orgasmic. The water clone charged forward and railed Sasuke in the chest with the hilt of her sword. Following the momentum, she placed her elbow square into the genin's stomach. Kurai slowly stood up as the boy attempted to get on his feet. Quickly she pushed him back down with her boot. Her face twisted into a mix of bliss and insanity, laughed cruelly as she spoke, "You're so pathetic." She squeezed down and rubbed her boot deeper into his gut. She let out a gasp of shock as something wet grabbed her by the torso and threw her away from the Uchiha. The clone looked up through her soaked bangs, sitting in the edge of the water. "You." Naruto's eyes were dull and lifeless, but his emotions were anything but, "You cut me so I'll kill you." The clone blew her bangs up as she stood, the large sword in hand. "Just try it, runt." At the edge of Naruto's hands, 2 blades of water formed and took the form of basic katanas. Faster than a genin should be, Naruto was in front of her, arms crossed and poised to lash out. Kurai's clone reacted quickly, cutting through Naruto like paper, only to gasp as she looked down to see 2 blades sticking out from her stomach. Kurai stared on in surprise at the speed of the redhead. "Kami, is this really the one you spoke of?" The last 3 days Kurai had been visited in her sleep by Kami, the divine goddess herself. Or at least she thought so. She had been warned that a powerful child with skin the color of fresh snow and hair the color of dull cherries. He would have control over water and would be wearing a ring of prayer beads. She didn't know why she was warned of this child. Because of these she had warned Haku to stay vigilant and to help her escape if she found it necessary. "I find it very necessary, but I want to see how this progresses just a bit more." She looked at the redhead as he slowly stalked towards her. "You say you killed an entire class of students. Don't make me laugh." The swordswoman looked on in curiosity and a strange excitement as the boy was wrapped up in purple chakra, a phantom figure forming in the shape of a demonic woman. "I killed my academy teacher, a chunin, like I was stepping on a bug. It was in a forest, without a source of water." Water surged as his anger started to boil. "My greatest power is control over any form of water. We're next to an ocean." The water at Naruto's feet rushed forward, intent on drowning the missing ninja. It never reached. 2 senbon hit the tall woman in the neck. She dropped like a rock, releasing her jutsu and freeing Kakashi. Naruto's rage dissipated as he watched he target fall face forward into the water and float. Not a moment later, a Kiri hunter ninja appeared kneeling next to the dead missing ninja. "I thank you, you provided me plenty of time for her to drop her guard and lose focus." Naruto grunted. Kakashi shook his head dry as he stood on top of the water. Checking her vitals, he nodded to the hunter ninja. "No pulse." He leaned his head next to the missing ninja's mouth to check for breathing. He heard nothing and felt nothing from it. Silently the hunter ninja picked up the body and nodded to them before vanishing. Kakashi knew something was wrong. Chapter 4. A Deal of Darkness, signed with blood. This chapter contains very graphic content of a violent nature. Read at your discretion. Naruto glared at the child in front of him. He wanted to strangle him, rip him from limb. "You. Do not, no pain, little boy. I should rip you apart for saying that." Sasuke and Sakura simply looked at him as if he was mental. Tsunami frowned as she felt the anger in his voice. Tazuna swallowed his food as he watched the two. Naruto stood up, his chair flying back as he did. Before anyone could stop him, he was out the door. Inari huffed as he left as well, heading to his room. Kakashi shook his head as he pulled out his book. Tsunami gave him a look. "Are you not going to do anything?" Kakashi looked over the edge of his book before speaking. He could, of course. But he knew Naruto's life wasn't rainbows and unicorns. It was most likely best to let him vent some anger. Kakashi shook his head. No, he needs time to vent his anger. Naruto cursed as he fell onto his knees, tears falling from his blind eyes. That little snot-nosed brat doesn't know what real pain is. He shook himself out and stood up. He stood still as he felt his emotions roil inside him. "Oh," hissed the big boy, crying. His red hair flew about as he looked up into the honey-colored eyes of Kurai Mamachi. The impression of a smirk was faint in the cloth that was wrapped around her neck and covered her mouth. Lashing out in anger and an emotion-induced rage, he stood up and was crossing the ground to attack her. "Whoa. Whoa, calm down kiddo. Her hand rose up to defend herself. I'm just here to talk. Naruto hesitated for a moment. I want to make you a deal, that's all. His heavy breathing plateaued into a steady stream and he was able to think straight. I thought that hunter ninja killed you. Why are you here? Kurai simply chuckled before sitting down against a tree. Nah, just a ploy in case I bit off more than I could chew. Speaking of that, you got any food on ya? The pale-skinned teen gave her an incredulous look. Was she serious? Pointing at him she laughed. Don't worry about it, I'll go kill some deer or something later. Nah, I'm here for you. He shook his head bewildered. What are you talking about? Something simple, life-changing maybe. Possibly destiny, I don't know. All I know is that I have an offer for you. Naruto shook his head before looking her straight in the eyes. What offer? Whoa, what up with your eyes? His brow furrowed. What offer? Her eyes rolled at the seriousness rolling of the boy. Would you believe me if I said Kami wanted this? Her words ushered a crushing realization as she waved her hand between both of them. The weight was too much and he fell to his knees shell-shocked. Could it be possible? Look, I'm here to give you an offer. One time and one time only. You take it and I teach you everything I know. The entry fee, so to speak, is you have to beat my current student. As perturbed by the current events as he was, mind racing, he could hear the dissatisfaction in Kurai's voice about that statement. Tomorrow. His dull purple eyes look up to her. Tomorrow I'll be waiting at the bridge. That is when I'm supposed to kill Tazuna and the other workers. I will confront Kakashi, but you will fight her, Haku. Walking away she waved, if you succeed, well, we'll move on from there. With it she leapt up into the forest canopy and disappeared. Naruto stood up, a flurry of emotions and thoughts contained within. With a sigh he straightened up and began walking back to Tazuna's house, eyes filled with a conflicted look. Sasuke's frowning face deepened as he heard his teammate shout his name. Get out here right now. What could the pest possibly want right now at the end of the day? Standing up and walking through the dimly lit hallway, he made his way to the living room where Inari and Tsunami were playing a board game. Tazuna was snoring heavily in his sleep. As he reached for the doorknob, he felt Kakashi's gaze on his back and turned to face him. He waved nonchalantly as he exited through the door. Standing outside, Naruto's dull violet eyes stared at Sasuke's figure, brow narrowed. Turning around, Naruto beckoned him after himself before heading off back into the forest. Reaching the same clearing as before, he turned to face Sasuke. Eyes wandering over him, he let out a breath before he began permeating chakra into the air. A purple hue saturated the surroundings. I hate your eyes. It was barely a whisper, but it was a whisper nonetheless, one that Sasuke indeed heard. Right here right now. Fight me, Sasuke. Give it everything you got. Sasuke slowly inched back as the purple haze encroached upon him, filling the forest up. Why should I fight you? I proved once I would have kicked your ass if we weren't interrupted at the graveyard. Reaching for a kunai, he looked at Naruto's scarred eyes. Or did you forget I robbed you of your eyesight? Spitting at the ground, he gave a huff of contempt at the deed. Naruto's fist clenched hard enough that his nails drew blood. The red liquid ran down his pale skin as he slowly moved to uncork his crystal container. No words came from his mouth, but the emotional charge was easily felt from the chakra. Water flowed to his hands and took the form of two blades as Naruto compacted the water under his control. You'll fight me if you want to live, Sasuke Uchiha. Blue thorns of the rose. Lashing out, Naruto roared with rage as the two blades became whips covered in sharp points. Shocked by the change, Sasuke evaded the two weapons for as long as he could, but eventually the speed caught up and a cut formed over his shoulder. The biting pain was distracting and nearly broke his focus. Sasuke's eyes lit up with the Sharingan as he shot into Naruto's guard. Quickly reacting, Naruto's whips shortened into swords as two kunai bore down upon him. Kurai idly watched her apprentice mess with some herbs. While Kurai was able to move around, she was ultimately no more than a civilian of her current status. When Haku had struck her neck, she had done more damage to her nerves than intended. Thus she was working on a blend of local herbs to help restore her total mobility back to normal. Oh Haku, what a wonderful apprentice she was. She was eager, happy to learn, was in essence the perfect shinobi. But she had a fault, of course. Her body wasn't meant to be as strong as Kurai's was. Haku was more lithe than nimble, not the feminine juggernaut she herself was. She couldn't handle the executioner's blade. Not its weight, not its eyes. The effort wasn't an issue, it was simply a matter of physical capability. While I've taught her plenty, there was only so much she could learn from me. We were simply too different. Looking up, Haku kept grinding the materials in a bowl, something the matter, Kurai-sama. As invisible as air, so too was the blatant but well-delivered lie. Smiling, Kurai casually waved away Haku's worries. Of course not, Haku, everything is perfectly fine. Smiling lightly, Haku nodded before returning to her actions. No, that wasn't true, plenty was wrong, but was it truly bad? That was the question, so it seemed. Was Kami really taking a hand in her life? Should she just play along? Kurai yawned as she ran a hand through her spiky black hair. Laying down back on her bed, eyes narrowed. What am I supposed to do? Picking upward, Sasuke's foot forced Naruto's mouth to snap shut. Jumping back, Sasuke sped through hand seals, fire style. Fireball jutsu. Panicking, he threw up a shield of water. Using the subsequent steam from the technique, Sasuke pushed the initiative and punched the retreat in the gut. Taking the blow, Naruto tried to sucker punch Sasuke in the face, only to have his fist stopped cold. Red met purple. You always think you're some sort of badass. Pulling the captured hand towards him, Sasuke kneed Naruto in the chest. You act like some kind of brat that the world owes everything to. You're just some orphan with a overspilling ego. Not relinquishing his grip, he kept battering Naruto's stomach with his knee. After the 7th time he hit him especially hard, launching the boy away. For all the special powers you seem to have, you're nothing special after all. Naruto pivoted in the air, landing with grace, and Sasuke met him with a glare. Those AS, he hate those damn eyes, so damn much. What a rush to meet Naruto as his anger boiled over the edge. The same spectral form as their first fight appeared. However, this time around it wasn't as menacing, instead it looked as if it was placating the boy in some way. As if it was some guardian angel. Just another reason he's a freak. Pulling 2 kunai out, he readied himself as Naruto's body tensed, poised to strike. So he did with anger and rage. But once more Kakashi appeared from thin air. His foot was placed against Naruto's shoulder, throwing him down face first into the dirt. His other was completing a pinwheel motion as his foot carried Sasuke over him and Naruto. I can't let you two try and settle your pissing contest without it turning into a battle for blood. Naruto's expressway to a dirt tasting had calmed him down slightly, it was at least enough to reel in the spectral being. Sasuke as a parallel had ceased using his Sharingan. Tomorrow is the day. I suspect Kurai and her accomplice will make their move tomorrow, they've had plenty of time for her to recover. Not to mention that these next few days are the last push in construction before the bridge is finished. I don't need you two dead by each other's hand. Walking away, Sasuke gave Naruto half a glance before following after Kakashi. Wiping dirt from his pale skin, pacing here and his hand through his hair as his mind burned a mile a minute. Gesturing his hand through the air, a cluster of shadow clones appeared, already jumping into forest. His snarl echoed faintly through the forest as the moon hung up above in the sky. Find her now. A striking sound filled the hideout as metal slid across wet metal. Again after again it was the only sound to fill the quiet night air. Inspecting the blade closer, Kurai watched it practically gleam back at her as proof of her tender care. A frequent ritual she performed with love and care to make sure her blade was always at the height of its sharpness. Her fun, however, was interrupted when a familiar cherry-haired boy burst in on her. Well, she was far from naked, being caught in a thin tank top, and shorts was a bit much for even her at a private moment such as this. Panting and anger written on his face, he took the most brief of moments to gather his breath. Kurai's blade was at his neck before he even spoke a word. Motioning to be silent, she motioned to the sleeping form of Haku in the lone bed of their hideout. Nodding, the unbeknownst to her clone quietly proceeded. My mind is made up, but you're gonna have to be a bit more flexible than possibly planned. Kurai's eyes widened and narrowed at the same time, causing one to be higher than the other. Noticing the hanging question, he motioned for her to be patient. Tomorrow at the bridge I will do my part. Kill Tazuna or don't, I don't particularly care, but as soon as everything is done and you find it possible, I want you to head to this location. Grabbing a pencil from his pants, he wrote on a piece of scratch paper from his tool pouch. It might be a while, but eventually someone will show up. You'll know it's the right person when they say what flower only blooms once. To this, Kurai rolled her eyes. Your answer will be the lonely blue rose, and if you forget what it is, I'll have killed your apprentice for nothing. To this, Kurai's face became serious as she nodded. But something was eating at her. This decision was much faster than she thought it would be. She'd expect it to happen tomorrow in some fashion, whether it was work together to kill everyone or, well, anything that would happen tomorrow. Hey brat, what exactly sparked this fire? The look the boy gave her chilled her. As he stood up, she froze. Haku slowly turned over in her sleep, mumbling harmlessly. Those eyes. Kurai turned back to him, only to see that he had seemingly vanished, but she still heard him on the wind. I hate those damn eyes. As he watched the sun rise, Naruto tossed a simple rubber ball against the wall. Bidding his time, it was slow, calm, serene. The rhythm. Thump. 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 It was quite similar to a heartbeat. I remember her heartbeat, oh so peaceful, the ease at which I slept was like no other. A tear rolled down his cheek. I'd always sleep so easily, wake so rested, live so vibrantly. Because I knew it would still be beating the next night and day. And oh so strong were the memories and the sounds. He soon found him still dozing back off. When he came back to, Kakashi was just opening the door to the room. Oh, you're finally up. I've been knocking and hollering for the last 5-10 minutes. Clean up and meet us at the bridge ASAP. Naruto nodded and waved him away. Walking out with them he caught the back of Sasuke's hair and nearly saw red. If he had it his way he would literally see red, a sea of it in the form of the Uchiha's blood. Shaking the murderous thoughts he followed after them. An idle thought ran across his mind as they neared the bridge with Tazuna in tow. Am I letting my anger get the better of me? Again his eyes landed on Sasuke, no deserves every last ounce of my ire. Taking in a deep breath he smelt the air of the morning. If he wasn't about to get hit by the proverbial shitstorm he would have enjoyed this morning thoroughly. Sitting on the bridge siding. Fist to his cheek he patiently waited for the day to pass. Starting to doze off his eyes closed for the briefest of moments. In that brief darkness two large scarlet eyes with slit pupils burned into his mind. The pure shock of it jolted him awake and even caused him to stand. A terrifying growl haunted his ears. But at the same time it was barely a whisper for him. "What the fuck?" His exclamation was sharp, but it was contained. The only person that seemed to notice was the worker on a lunch break next to him, and that was a fleeting thing as it was. A slight temperature change was quickly followed by mist. The change was quick, sudden. But it was clearly apparent. The man that was sitting next to him on the ground was suddenly another world away as the obscuring screen blocked his view. As he moved towards the sound of metal clashing his chakra was dyeing the mist a faint diluted purple. When he finally reached the center of the commotion he was granted a boon of imagery as Sasuke was kicked away by what he assumed was Kurai's apprentice. Popping the top on his gourd he rushed towards Haku with a crazed look of obsession on his face. Not to mention a matter of possible concern, his violet eyes were a deep blood red and each had a singular slit instead of a circular pupil. Kill. 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 The gasp of surprise uttered from Haku's mouth as a black boot struck her in the right shoulder. Displaying the skill and grace of a well-taught shinobi she moved with a kick planted her own foot in the face of her attack, that being Naruto. Patting her shoulder off and checking for anything more than a bruise. When it was clear it was just a strong blow she pulled out senbon and held them between her fingers. Haku's hands let loose at the now standing form of Naruto. The cherry-haired boy wiped his split lip free of blood as he watched the girl attack from afar. He savored the look of surprise when his automatic defense kicked in and two wisps of water slapped the senbon out of the air. Blue Garden. Thrusting up with his hands tendrils of water in the form of a massive rose garden rushed up enveloping them in his technique. In here I am God to you. Haku cursed as a rose bloomed above her and its petals shot out at her. Flexibly running her leg over the ground in a lazy pirouette, she spun her body in and out of the petals, hearing them turn into puddles of water she smirked under her mask. You lose. Stomping down into the puddle it splashed up and rapidly froze before they became suspended in the air. Subsequently they proceeded to assault the entrapment of water. Faster than he could reshape, the water was reduced to its natural liquid form before rapidly being turned to some form of ice and kept attacking. The haze from the attacks was a mixed bluish-purple and surprisingly to Naruto it was blinding for him. And the first time since his graveyard fight with Sasuke, he felt the fear of being blind sink into his soul. The darkness however slowly moved away as the containing chakra faded away as well. With his senses limited he was still able to see the technique around him. The jutsu. Demonic crystal mirrors a physical and figurative chill ran through him as his blue garden, now frozen solid, crumbled leaving the mirrors to themselves. Dropping in front of him was a frozen rose reflecting back to him the image of Haku spreading from mirror to mirror. An uncomfortable silence fell across the frigid battlefield. As Kurai lashed out at Kakashi with her blade she paused for the briefest of moments, that was too fast, a sense of doubt and depression ran through her mind as Kakashi's kunai nearly ran through her. Maybe the dream was one. Kari's silver eyes narrowed with pain and anger as she and Tetsuo watched the battle unfold on the bridge. She yearned to join Naruto, but he had strictly forbade their involvement. Even if it meant he would die they were to stay out of this fight. She was torn between risking Naruto's ire or Danzo's punishment for letting his adopted grandson die. Her fears were suspended in her heart as she felt it. Naruto's eyes darted over the mirrors as Haku began her move. A storm of senbon was unleashed, but to her despair, none came close as the water defended him with a flurry of thin wisps of whip-like water. Growling she coated the kunai with a loose film of ice. Once more she unleashed a torrent of metal and pain. This time however instead of the water grabbing and throwing away the metal, the senbon continued from its icy sheath. She'd give him credit for his defense's abilities of the 40 or so senbon only 2 made it through, even with her improvised idea. Through became quite literal as the 2 had completely slid through his chest and out his back. While he was indeed only 15 and had only experienced a relative handful of things in his life, choking to death on his own blood was not the way he saw himself dying. Panic mode hit him like a brick and he enveloped himself with his chakra, trying to use its comforting properties to keep himself calm as he struggled to breath. Falling to his knees he fell onto his side, blood leaking from his lips and now ran across his cheek. Looking around rapidly his eyes settled on the solo form of Haku in the highest mirror. With haste his attention was stolen by the phantom form of a purple figure staring down at him in worry. Time to step aside, pathetic ninja. Naruto's pitiful attempt to stay calm in the face of his own death was crushed as the guttural voice permeated his mind. Not only am I Dinjum losing my mind. His thoughts were quickly accompanied by a sinister laugh. Something snapped inside of him, however, not his broken insides, not his crumbling mind. No. Pulling himself up, the purple figure that had at one point struggled between a beautiful woman and a feral beast had stabilized as the woman once more. I'm not gonna take such a pathetic amount of damage lying down. This world is my bitch and you're no different. Reining in his chakra, his body, and his thoughts, he stared up at Haku, eyes blazing with rage. I won't die until I claw those fucking eyes out. Forming the ram seal, he maintained his eyes side as Haku attacked. The exact moment he felt a single part of Haku exit the mirror, the dome was engorged with water. The spontaneous movement halted Haku immediately. Subsequently, all the water lost its form and Haku was thrown away from the domes. In a flash of purple, he reappeared in front of Haku and, surprisingly, not that he cared at that very moment, was right next to the deadlocked forms of Kakashi and Kurai. The mask she wore was cracked from the impact against the concrete of the bridge and he was drowning himself in the look of fear she gave him. Leaning over her, he grabbed Haku's shirt and hoisted her up. His pale hand ran over the mask fragment that was still on her face. Brushing it away, his palm opened up and a tongue slid across her cheek and licked at the tears below her eyes. She wanted to fight back, to move, but she couldn't. It was like all the chakra in her body was being stolen away in a vacuum. Adjusting his free hand, he forced the tongue into her mouth as he slowly suffocated her. Using what last bit of energy she had, she tried thrashing her legs around, but to no avail. Doesn't feel good, does it? Feeling helpless as your lungs burn for oxygen, hehe. She made the mistake of looking into his eyes, those feral eyes. The slit-bearing eyes widened perversely as he made his final move against her. Turning around, he forced Haku's back to arch as he moved his arm from her mouth to wrapping around her neck. Grabbing her breast in one final act of violation, he yanked down and up with his arms as he saw her eyes fall on Kurai, tears flooding forth as her tired body gave one last voluntary noise. Kurai-sama. ARCK. With one move, he broke the petite girl's neck and let a roar of anger and joyous laughter as he proceeded to stomp on her twitching corpse. Ha 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 ha, I'm the king, you see. Me. Blood dripped from his laughing mouth as Kakashi quickly appeared behind him and knocked him out. Chapter 5. A comforting embrace. I gave you some light. I hope it was bright. To save you from darkness. And those who'd be heartless. For you are my son. But the jeweled purple eyes opened quickly and once more quickly shut as the rays of light touched them, though not from the sun. No, the intense shock of pain from his chest forced him to wince in response. Biting his tongue to keep from shouting out in pain, he gave a somber glance towards the floor, mind replaying the same 5 lines again and again. Pain was never something he cried over, and he wasn't this time either. Those words hurt so much he'd rather be beaten to a pulp than remember them. Naruto was aware of the irony though, he'd rather be dead than forget the rhyme. Like everything else about her, he simply could not and certainly would not forget about a single aspect of Mikoto. Stuck in his lamenting, he was caught off guard as his breathing hitched and he started coughing. By the time he had calmed himself, a coppery taste was at the front of his mouth, the taste of warm blood came forward to his lips. His head turned on a swivel as the door opened. Lowering his guard at the sight of Tsunami, it was raised back up as an unknown man in a white coat appeared. At the presence of Tsunami, Naruto finally realized why the room was familiar. He was inside the same room as before. Taking a closer look around, he was hooked up to a machine that was steadily beeping along with his heart. His right arm was also attached to an IV drip. It also went without saying, but the tube in his mouth and down his throat was uncomfortable to say the least. Staring at the man in white, Naruto calmly waited as the man checked his condition. Closing his eyes, Naruto opened them rapidly as the same 2 scarlet eyes as before burned into his mind. The one steady beeping of the EKG sped up, betraying the look of calm on the boy's face. Standing back and studying the boy, the man tossed his arms up in exasperation. I just don't understand this kid. The entry wounds on his chest are gone, his body's no more exhausted than I am, lungs in the final stage of healing. If I encountered this in my life ever again, it would be too soon. Trying to laugh at the man's predicament, Naruto soon found himself coughing again. With a warning to be careful, the doctor left the room. I'll get Haddock-san. Tsunami nodded as she went to sit next to the boy. Thank you for leaving a clone behind. If you hadn't, the Reed merely waved it away. Our mission is to protect Izuna until he finishes his bridge. If something were to happen to you, there is a chance he'd go as far as suicide for a reaction. We thusly failed the mission, and I hate failing. Taken aback by his comment, Tsunami tried to ignore the thought but knew it was possible. A silence fell over the bedroom. Looking out the window, Naruto tried to imagine what it looked like outside, but with a grumble, he looked towards Tsunami. Knowing she smiled. I haven't seen the sun so bright in a long time. The waves would be something to see. Nodding, Naruto's attention turned to the door. In a matter of seconds, Kakashi walked through the door, a pensive look on his face. Or rather, the part you could see, given the mask and headband. Good to see you're awake and well, Naruto. Leaning against the doorframe, he rubbed his head, unsure of how to pursue the next topic. So do you remember anything? Naruto looked at his hands briefly. Shaking his head, he shrugged lazily. No, not really. I remember feeling a lot of panic, almost unbearably so. Then everything went black. He felt the bandages on his chest as if looking for something. Whatever it was, it wasn't there, causing Naruto to sigh. I'm gonna guess Haku Senbon got me in the lungs and that I blacked out from a lack of oxygen. Naruto didn't have to see the hesitation in Kakashi or Tsunami looking away to know that something more was going on. Yay, that's right. What happened to the hunter Nin? To Kurai? Naruto noticed Kakashi's eye narrowing at the inquiries. During your fight with the girl in the mask, I was going for the finishing move against Kurai. Speaking carefully, Kakashi continued to spin his web of lies. She stepped in front of my lightning blade and took it straight to the chest. Died instantly. Naruto forced a frown on his face. Mistaken for remorse at someone dying, Kakashi sighed. The unasked question lingered in the air. As for Kurai, well, she got away. Gato showed up not long after with company in tow. She took that moment to leave. Didn't even bother to grab her companion's body. As for Gato, the people of Wave lynched him. Grisly, but they hung him in the center of the village. The happy but sad smile was Tsunami's response to the mention of the tyrant's demise. When they saw the whole village had decided to take action, many of the flunkies Gato had hired decided to turn tail and run. Naruto nodded at the story. The last part was true at least. What a terrible liar. Naruto had a broad smile, or rather in his mind he was. Everything had worked out then. Kurai's apprentice was dead, she herself was in the wind, and the mission was over. For me, the most disappointing thing is I have no idea what the hell is wrong with me. Everything else went to plan as expected. If you guys don't mind, I'd like some alone time. Maybe I'll take a nap. Kakashi smiled. Giving a glance to Tsunami, he motioned for her to join him. Need help with making lunch, Tsunami-san? The mother nodded with a gentle smile. Sure, I'd love an extra hand in the kitchen. Anzaku Town. Wrapped in a thick cloak, Kurai made her way down an alley. Unsure of what she was looking for, she kept walking into the darkness of the alley's confines. Turning another corner, she was met with the view of a figure even taller than herself. With her well-trained eye, even in the dark she could see this man was simply packed with muscles. Reaching under her robe, her hand never reached her shoulder, the man's hands gripped her at the biceps and held her in place. Let go of me, you muscle-bound filth. Ignoring her, the man ripped the cloak off and stared her in the eyes. What flower only blooms once? Her body relaxed at the phrase, and she nodded. The lonely blue rose. Tensions dropped completely and the man bowed before her. She was put off guard by the action. Kurai-sama, please follow me. Stepping backward, she motioned to be silent. As soon as she had the man before her must have noticed it too. There was someone else in this alley. Based on the Anbu's body language, it wasn't an ally of any form. Jumping to the man's side, a person took her place almost at the same instant, blade shimmering in the light of the moon. With a blast of smoke, Kurai's massive weapon came into her hands. Prepared to retaliate, her companion motioned for her to stay back. Rushing the dark assailant, the man reared back his fist. A glowing shade of blue struck out across the ground at his attack. The ground cracked and shattered under the assault. Leaping away in silence, the stranger positioned himself on the wall of a building. A light from said building flickered on, and the assassin slid down the wall, back to brick. Do you people have any idea what time my angry fist started shaking wildly as a man in his late 50s leaned out his window, only for the stranger to throw a lightning jab into the man's face. Flipping up and through the opening the figure made to escape, Kurai made to pursue as she heard the resident cry out in pain. Reaching the window, the woman leapt away as the elderly man stumbled towards the window's opening, hand swiping at air. With a roar, the Anbu's hand slammed into the poor man's face as he flew across the brick siding. Nodding at her ally, Kurai launched herself across the alley into the home entry. Catching a flash of the person's clothing, she rushed out the door. Pulling her blade back, she pulsed chakra through the metal. With a push of effort, she spun the sword through the doorway, cutting through the surrounding brick and out into the night air. With a wet sound, the executioner's blade struck into the ground, anchoring the assailant to the cobbled road. Not 3 feet away from the incident, a woman tossed her handbag at the incident with a shout of panic. Landing in the road, Kurai raised her hands in a placating gesture. Her hands tensed as the Anbu dropped beneath the woman, head already in his hands. Kurai's arms went limp as the innocent woman's neck twisted. No one can know we were here. With a sigh Kurai grasped the hilt of her sword only to pause as the figure's head turned around in a physically impossible way. Rasping, the assailant spoke. The Elder's legacy can't escape. I was the first, but I will not be the last, prays Ashura. Cursing, Kurai tried to pull her blade free as the man began to glow orange. A look of panic formed on her face as she stared the trap down. Kurai-sama. In the next instant the Anbu was upon her, arm in her stomach and throwing her away from the blast. Her eyes shot open as the blast enveloped the behemoth of a man. Sliding across the ground, her body came to rest, she started scrambling onto her hands and knees. When the smoke cleared she was greeted to the side of the man panting as his skin returned to a faint tan from a dark brown. How did? With a weak laugh the man placed his hands on his side as he took a deep breath in. These muscles aren't just for show, Kurai-sama. It was then her ears caught the sound of multiple feet bounding on the ground. Quickly, we must leave. Nodding, the Anbu led the way. My name is Kagamaru Kurai-sama, Kagamaru Seijin. A pleasure to meet you. Naruto sighed as he inhaled the dust of the root base. Looking at the door in front of him he sighed again. Opening it he entered Danzo's personal quarters. Looking over paperwork the man glanced up from his workload. Pushing forward a paper the man pointed at it. This is your application for the Chunin exams starting in a week. I took this from Kakashi as he couldn't find you after the hospital discharged you. Naruto nodded as he prepared to reach for it. Halting him, Danzo gave him a pointed look. If you accept this you must work with your team to succeed. These are not exams to be taken lightly. With a sigh the man leaned back in his chair. Besides that, I wish you the best and I'll be seeing you at the finals. With another nod Naruto left the room. Giving the paper a look on the front and back his shoulders slumped. I guess things could be more worse. Not sure how exactly but they could be. Walking across the central bridge he glanced up at the Anbu walking straight to him. Raising an eyebrow as he got closer he raised a quick question, need something Anbu-san? When the person was within arm's reach Naruto leapt back as they reached out, hearing Kari give a shout of warning. As fast as it came Kari was in front of him, sword entering its sheath. Vacuum tear. Tetsuo's arms grabbed Naruto and threw him away from the intruder. A thin shimmer began to cover the body as the person raised their arm towards Naruto. The person's sentence was cut off, falling to their knees as the explosive notes underneath their vest went off. Contained by Kari's technique the only remnant of the assassin was a charred spot on the bridge. Rushing to his side Kari began fussing over him, causing him to deadpan. Well Cherry-kun, you sure know how to welcome people, don't you? Turning around Naruto rolled his eyes at the name. Before him stood Kurai and Seijin. Looking closer he could see flecks of blood on her sword and on her soot from some form of explosion. Taking a breath he shook his head. Now is not the time for this shit. Running his hand through his hair he looked toward Seijin and with a wave of his hand, Kurai was whisked away by the Goliath. Kari, thank you first and foremost. Secondly, grabbing the sides of his head he ruffled his hair. How the hell did this almost happen? By now the entire base was abuzz, the root forces searching for any more intruders. Later that night their search would find the body of one of the new recruits. In his death he would leave behind a twin sister, a pair of orphans whom Danzo had found in the land of tea. While it indeed was only one person, it had still been one person. This would only be seen in one way by Danzo. The man considered every single child he took in as his own. To lose one was as if you were attacking himself. He didn't take that sort of act without an answering retort. Whether with blood or word. I've changed first person. I ran a hand through my hair, taking a deep breath. I raised a hand. Halting the beauty before me, keeping her from speaking. I haven't been home for half a day and someone is trying to kill me. Giving her a pointed look she returned it without a moment's delay. Almost seems like she wants to yell at me. What? I could see her shoulders start to shaking, following after I heard her laugh. No, I mean really laugh. Not a sarcastic one or a nervous one. No, a serious, from the body laugh. Seems to make sense that it made me upset, someone not half an hour ago had just tried to kill me. If you weren't aware, laughing isn't exactly the best reaction to an assassination attempt. Nearly bit one of my tongues clenching a fist. But it was clear, or at least to me, that she wasn't laughing at someone trying to kill me. The energy she gave off wasn't like that. Finally taking a breath she gently held her sides as she tried to calm down. When I first saw you, I figured you for an upstuck boring brat. So far nothing has followed that thought. Almost like trouble goes out of its way to find you. I grinned. Wouldn't that make you trouble? Her eyes briefly widened, closing before she laughed again. There was something about that laugh. It made me want to hear it again, or I'd want to laugh myself. The room quickly became awkward with silence. So what now? I looked up at her, probably with a dumb look on my face. Right, kinda forgot about that. Kami herself, huh? I drummed my fingers on my arm. Kurai looked me in the eyes from across the room. We both know for a fact she doesn't intervene with humans anymore. The last recorded sign of her presence was millennia ago. She just answered her own question. No, seriously, you just answered your own question. She's our god, she can do whatever she wants. Garai's face practically screamed sadness. I think the only thing that could have said it any clearer would be actual tears. Did I ever mention I dislike crying women? Well, rather, the only one I was ever around was Makoto. That's beside the point. Then what do we do? Why am I here? I could hear the tone change as if it wrote itself out to me, screaming, hey, I'm angry. I had to have my only companion killed because she told me so. Didn't expect that. I killed my own sister because Kami told me to. Didn't expect that either. You want to know what it's like only having one other person in the world mean something to you? Only for someone to ruin everything. My mind became a haze of anger, sadness. All those emotions I spent so much time on keeping under a firm boot, keeping from getting out, started to surface. But it stopped dead. So what do we do then, huh? What's Kami's almighty plan? Are we supposed to have sex? Or that? No, 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 no. I scrambled to my feet as fast as I could, trying to stop her from undressing. By the time I was across the room, the obviously taller woman already had her armor, her loose tank top not far behind. Not gonna lie, I was stunned by the sight. So much so I tripped, yay. I ran face first into her chest, knocking both of us to the floor. Somehow ending up on the bottom, I found myself glaring up at her. Something was at the back of my mind making the anger resurface once more. The rage was so sudden and intense I didn't notice the brief clarity of my sight. My hand snapped to her mouth, preventing her from speaking. My glare must have become more intense or something of the sort. She stiffened in my grasp, eyes widening. But the snarl, I finally lost control of the rage I so deeply despised. Do not ever assume I, of all people, have no clue what that situation is like. It must have started here, but I'm still not sure when. I was crying. The only person I ever loved, ever had, that only cared for my well-being was taken from me. I tightened my grip on her face. The only person I could ever hope to see as my mother was killed, but not just by anyone. No, she was killed by her own real flesh and blood, whom I called brother. If it was even possible, I became even more angry. The thought of Itachi melted away any sadness. The memory rushed me, faster than any bolt of lightning. Flashback. You two are brothers from this day forward. No fighting. A frustrated Makoto stood over the pair of Itachi and Naruto, fan in hand. Cedri Deed was rubbing his head free of pain. Naruto, you must accept this, and Itachi, you must understand this. You two must care for each other as if you were brothers by blood. She sighed as she knelt before the duo. I love you both. You are my world. You are everything to me. Seeing you fight, always bickering, hurts me. Placing her hand over her heart, the two boys flinched at the sight of her crying. You two, life isn't always fair. In fact, as you get older, you'll realize that life is full of disappointment, cruelty and hate. Wiping away her tears, she smiled at the boys. But if you have someone important to you, you can overcome the hate with love. The cruelty with kindness, and beat disappointment with satisfaction. Itachi gave Naruto a sideways glance before sighing and messing up the boy's hair. He then looked at his mother. I guess we can. Then he turned back to Naruto. It's not my fault I'm smarter than you, Naru-chan. Hey. Makoto couldn't help but smile at her two boys. Acceptance isn't always easy, but they'll get there eventually. Flashback end. My hand froze, I slowly pulled it away and wrapped my arm around Kurai. Removing any apprehension, I embraced the half-naked woman before me. Any anger I'd been building was fading away, replaced by sadness. I hated these memories of mine. They only served to make me feel lost in the world. Pulling us back up, her arms wrapped around me and held me in return. Seems we've both been hurt. Guess I got a little carried away. By now my defenses were nearly broken, my body was trembling. I knew she knew, her embrace became lighter. Her hand ran its way through my hair. I couldn't stop, couldn't help but start sobbing into her neck. Why does it feel like my world is splitting apart? If that's the case, then I'll use mine. I'll use it to put yours back together. Her body trembled just as mine once was. The exhaustion was setting in, the curtains of darkness washing over me. But I heard her words. There was a different tone to them. Unlike us, it was different. Angry once again. No, it was resolve. I promise, Naruto, I'll make us a new world. Where we can be happy. I felt a shift in our bodies and she kissed my forehead. I promise. Chapter 6. Water-drowned remedy. Creeping darkness. But the stir of body began to rise from the wooden floor of the root hideout, the only light casting its eyes on the figure were that of a small flickering candle from a nearby shrine. Stretching her arms out with a muffled yawn, Kurai looked around her location, trying to process the events of the previous night. Arms sinking to her side, she realized she was straddling Naruto's sleeping form. Gazing down at him, she couldn't help but give a forlorn look at her new partner. Was Haku's death worth a future with this person, arguably a complete stranger? Sure, she thought he was charming and attractive, but he was just a teen fresh out of the academy. Carefully she reached towards his face, fingers dancing across his face, grasping the edges of his hit eye. She slowly pulled it away from his forehead. Concern struck her face as she finally saw more of what once struck her curiosity. Completely circling Naruto's eyes was nothing but scar tissue, as if someone had applied a pinkish red eyeliner and weren't aware of how to apply said makeup. Leaning forward, she went to kiss the teen's brow once again, only to freeze in place as the Redeed suddenly gripped both of her upper arms. Red met yellow as Kurai remained frozen, the Genin's mottled but faintly slitted eyes pierced into her soul. In the next moment, however, he was blinking, shaking his head clear. "Kurai. What are you doing?" Kurai's brain took a fraction of a second to process the event before she placed a mask of false emotion on her face. "Nothing, Gaki. Nothing at all. You simply startled me when you woke." "What was that about? That was not normal." Kurai's mood, however, changed as she felt Naruto move underneath her, an obvious reaction taking place in the boy. Smirking, she tore into the teen. "Ooh oh. Is that a kunai in your pocket, or are you just happy to be mounted by a beauty such as myself?" The Redeed's eyes widened in embarrassment at the remark. To his immense relief, a knock on the door echoed through the room. "Naruto-sama, Danzo-sama wishes to speak with Kurai-sama as soon as she's available." Kurai raised an eyebrow as she stood, Naruto following as she pulled him up by the arm. "Wonder what the old man wants from me." A Redeed companion merely shrugged in return, no wiser than she was. If he was to guess, it would be regarding the event of the previous night and the would-be assassin that had somehow infiltrated such a well-guarded location. Kurai glanced towards the place Naruto last stood, words already forming, "Think we have time to take showers?" However, she was met to the sound of water running and the bathroom door closing. "Did you say something?" Wide-eyed, Kurai's fist raised up in anger. "Why, you little, I'm gonna kick your pale white ass." Her complaints were met with a snicker as the sound of the door behind her opened, greeting her with the sight of Kari and her purple hair. With a huff, she gave a nod to the perplexed root member. "Oh, you don't want to join me? I guess that comment earlier was just a facade." The ex-Aqua member saw red, gripping the sides of her black shirt and lifted it over her head. There was no way in hell that he was gonna get the better of her. Behind Kurai, Kari's eyes bulged in their sockets as she was greeted by Kurai's bare muscular back. Taking a step back, Kari letting out a gasp, she watched the feminine juggernaut's pants follow. Now clad in only blue panties, Kurai quickly opened the bathroom door, the next moment it was closed. Kari shook her head, palms to her face before turning around to inform Danzo of what had transpired. Now in the bathroom, Kurai glared at the glass pane between her and the Redeed. "I'll be damned if I let him think he got one over on me." Grabbing the waistband of her underwear, she stripped and opened the glass door. She was immediately hit by the heat of the shower. Having used, and still using, her silent killing technique, she snuck in behind the teen. Taking a careful look at his well-defined back, she almost wanted to purr as she reached out. Moving her arms to wrap around his torso, she was caught off guard as some of the water before her changed form and gripped her wrists tightly. Remembering Naruto's powers, she almost gave up on surprising him when she noticed he hadn't reacted. He didn't even say anything. His gourd isn't in here, it's on the couch in the next room. Just how is he then? It dawned on her, was he always in control of his ability to manipulate water? Was the power sentient? The thought occurred to her, could it detect hostility? Testing her theory, she gave out a silent breath of air, releasing the intent she once had to throttle the teen. Relinquishing its constraint on her wrists, she slowly wrapped her arms around the teen. Rising from her center, she felt peace flow from the Redeed into herself, even as he froze at the contact of something more than water. For a moment the sound of water was silent and she could hear the emotion from every breath he took. His soap-covered hand gently wrapped around her forearm as he carefully leaned into her chest. So close now that the water washed over the both of them in unison. Close enough to feel her pulsing heart. Naruto let out a shaky breath, unsure what to say. While the contact wasn't unwanted, he was overwhelmed by the emotions that it brought up, feelings once locked away in his past. "I haven't felt the touch of a human in so long that wasn't tainted by the desire to harm me. Not since I was a little kid, I'd almost forgotten what it was like." Sadness broke the silence of the water as she heard the faint sound of sobbing. Her breasts pressed further into his back as she consoled her new companion, arms tightening around his chest. "I told you, Naruto, I'd fix you up. If Kami herself wants us together, I won't fight it. In fact, I must say I actually enjoy your company." Rubbing his chest gently, she continued, "Well, it's clear you're not the most sane of people. You didn't have much of a life to bear sanity in the first place. Seijin-san told me a bit about you." Still crying, Naruto's body tensed for a brief moment, anxiety sinking into his soul. What would she think if all he thought about was a dead woman nearly triple his age? She'd think he was a freak, like everyone else. The freak with the weird hands, the scourge of the leaf. Paranoia sapped the strength from his legs as a pretty face with brown eyes quickly changed to a white and red mask. It was Haku. He could still practically taste the salt from her skin, the look of terror seared into his memory as he molested her. The echo in his ears from the sound of her neck breaking. For all his arrogance, all the posturing, he was no more than a young man. Even in the haze of rage as he killed her, he could remember everything clearly as if looking at a set of pictures. Nothing could purge that memory of weakness and triumph from his brain. What was once a slow muffled stream of sounds became a loud unrestrained crying as Kurai followed the boy to the base of the shower, arms still wrapped around his shaking form. Running her hand through his wet soap-filled hair she whispered sweet nothings in his ear, not unlike a lover would. "I'm a freak, a wretch upon this world," he thought to himself with self-pity. "I'm a freak." He spoke with a sniffle. Turning his head ever so slightly, he raised his hand into her vision. Tooth-filled palm towards her. Opening ever so slightly the tongue recoiled, almost as if to have a muscle spasm. The hand immediately tightened and closed up as if the mouth could taste the soap still covering its surface and found it distasteful. Rage flowed into her veins at the remark, releasing her grip she forced the Riti to face her, completely turning his body towards her own. For the first time, in all her feminine glory, Naruto was gifted the sight of Kurai's bust, her well-toned stomach, crisscrossed by scars and the patch of black hair above her genitalia. Completely exposed the red head was caught mildly off guard by the clearly male member that sat between her hips, while intrigue was tickling at his thoughts to himself. He didn't say anything, nor even flinched at the view, gaze still aimed at the glass behind her, while his energy did its magic. Nary a moment's thought crossed him to take another glance, as he was still wrapped up in his own thoughts of self-loathing. Though enraptured with rage she too did not steal even a single glance at his exposed state. Quickly her hand, that had once been amidst his hair, was now firmly gripping his chin. Black nail polish contrasted against his snow-white skin. Unfortunately, even with his head being forcibly pointed toward, he still refused to look her in the eyes, his sight instead pointed towards the glass of the door as the rivulets of water ran lines down the smooth surface. "Look me in the eyes, Naruto." When he refused her request her face tightened. Like her visage, her grasp of his lower jaw increased in strength. "I said look at me." The words echoed in the small bathroom for a brief moment. Begrudgingly Naruto ever so slightly moved his vision to match Kurai's. When his eyes finally met hers, he was heartbroken as he could feel the tears, not the water, drip down her face. Though blind he could still see her expression plain as day, and the pain that stabbed its way into his heart with it. "You're not a freak, Naruto Uzumaki." Reaching for his hand she held the limb up in front of his face, perfectly aware he couldn't actually see, she knew though. She knew he could feel everything around him like a hypersensitive sonar. "This isn't a deformation of your hands, it is a rare bloodline from Iowa." A flash of shock marred his face. "It's used to compress your chakra on itself, effectively tempering and strengthening it in your body. Let me guess you have amazing chakra control, right?" A faint nod was his only answer. Water still cascading upon them. "I thought so, it's labeled as a kenjutsu in Iowa for a reason. It can be artificially created in the human body but at a cost. If done wrong it essentially erodes the person's chakra network until they die, eating itself to death like a confused parasite. Perfect chakra control may seem like a worthy endeavor, but not at such a cost. There's a reason some things are best left hidden into nature. You just happen to be blessed with it as a gift. So Naruto." Kurai's hand finally let go, and she placed it and her other at the sides of his face, brushing wet maroon strands away from it. "You aren't a freak. You're something special." Leaning in she placed her lips upon his and kissed him deeply. Pulling back she sighed as she prepared herself. "Take me for example, on the outside with your unique powers, I bet I may look like an average kunoichi, but I'm an intersexual person, I was born with both reproduction organs. You think I like thinking I was a freak while growing up? The first person I thought I was ready to share my body with threatened to kill me if they ever saw me again after they found out." Kurai's gaze faltered as memories tempted her emotions to spill forth. Naruto leaned forward, pulling her forehead to his in comfort. Pulling furthermore he met her lips with his again. For a few moments they stayed like this until inevitably they needed to breath, but sadly this didn't have the effect either was looking for. Naruto looked no different. His emotions that of sadness and Kurai on the brink of tears. "Kurai, appreciate and even feel quite touched that you shared that, but that's not even the center of my problems." Motioning to his heart he clenched his fist, his face adopting a look of anguish. "I miss her so much. It hurts more than anything someone could say to cut into me." Motioning him towards herself she slid her arms back around his wet torso, pulling his head into her breasts. "Who do you miss, Naruto? What is it that troubles you so damn much?" Not half an hour later Naruto stepped through the threshold of the bathroom into the living room of his house. Following right behind him was Kurai, both clad in towels. Lacing her fingers with his she turned him around, pulling the shorter retreat into a kiss. With a much more amused tone than before she smiled into his lips. I thought the stereotype was the women were supposed to taste great. I like cherries. Parting, she smacked his rear with the back of her hand as he turned around. We need to get dressed, lover boy, the old man won't wait much longer without dying of old age. The genuine laugh left Naruto's mouth. Having lived for so long and experienced many complex things, Danzo could say he'd seen it all. At one time the thought of Naruto smiling, with joy of all the emotions, evaded him. It just didn't seem possible. Perhaps he overstepped with indoctrinating the young Yamanaka so soon. Time will tell. He thought to himself. Hardening his gaze, he looked the two over, contemplating just how to present his discovery. I have brought you here on the matter of the reports of not one, but two, assassination attempts on both of your lives. The pair nodded in understanding, having both expected this exact scenario. After the second attempt I had more to go on than just a madman spouting out names upon his deathbed. Upon returning to your room last night, Naruto, I sent out Torun and Fu to see if they could find anything that might give us a clue as to what exactly happened. At first it seemed nothing turned up, but then Torun's little friends found traces of the assassin on the brickwork near the assailant's first appearance. Nodding at this, Kurai could see how it had happened. When he scaled the wall he had plenty of time to scrape against the brick's roughness. Maybe that old guy was useful after all. Frowning, Danzo nodded in agreement before continuing. Torun and Fu spent most of the night and early morning following what they could. Surprising even Naruto, the grizzled shinobi's face became more serious, if that was even possible. They were not the only assassins, and you were not the only victims, attempted or otherwise. Wait, you mean to tell me someone is deliberately trying to kill us? Naruto and Danzo shared a look of disbelief at Kurai's comment. Momochi-san, you do realize what you just said, right? You are a rogue ninja. Do you mean to tell me you haven't once been attacked for being in the bingo book? The tall woman shrugged at the notion. Now that you mention it, no. Tapping her chin with a thoughtful look, she frowned. It is possible that with everything going on in Kiri, they never had a chance to actually pursue me. Shaking her head, but that wouldn't stop other countries from trying to collect the bounty on my head. With a whistle of relief she smiled at Naruto. Damn, I must have scared them away, that or I'm just lucky. Danzo coughed lightly into his hand, regaining the pair's attention. Be that as it may, I urge you and Naruto to take the utmost care for yourselves and each other when going about your day-to-day business. Stroking his chin, and possibly an imaginary beard, he grew a thoughtful look. That leads me to my next and main topic of discussion. Naruto, my boy, your training, with Chunin exams coming in time, will be bolstered further by Kurai and Seijin. Kurai raised an eyebrow at the idea, not against it truthfully, but still caught a smidge off guard. Nodding, Naruto liked the idea. He'd be able to split away from any of the training provided by Kakashi, as between him and Sasuke, the two were sure to be taught similar methods of engagement. If Kakashi was as fabled a shinobi though, it might allow Sasuke to stay as level in capabilities as himself, something that drove Naruto mad personally. A thought came to him. Turning to Kurai, the woman took a step back, hands separating from his. Oh Kami, what's that look about? Practically cackling, Naruto rubbed his hands together. You're gonna teach me your silent killing technique? Kurai HMMM''d to herself in thought at the idea. When she learned it had nearly doubled her potential in fights. If you can't hear or see your opponent in a fight, you generally died unable to fight back. Naruto would have a potent ace in the exams if she taught him. Maybe I'd let him touch my sword too. She chuckled to herself at the joke before nodding at Naruto. I also would like to see Seijin train you, as I think I know why the old man has picked him. Nodding and understanding, Danzo grabbed Naruto's attention. How perceptive. Seijin is one of the toughest children I have ever met. His durability is both natural and learned. I hope that Momochi-san's offensive abilities will be matched and balanced by Seijin's defensive talents in turn. Naruto nodded his head in acceptance. Then if my training room is prepared, then we shall begin. The only sound in the room was the periodic drip drop that came as the mist filling the room occasionally gathered enough on the room's wooden surfaces before falling to the stone floor. The mist was an imperceptibly faint pink all throughout. Feeling his surrounds, he was still dismayed to feel nervousness at the lack of vision. Not because of darkness, as he'd once interpreted this sensation as, but rather constant brightness overloading his senses. No different than losing focus when being hit in the face. His surroundings were a repeating source of information that prevented him from feeling Kurai's movements in his sphere of influence. Stepping to his left, he took his stance again. Think Kurai would come from the front, being the brazen Wama. She was. A groan left his mouth as he felt a poke to his lower spine. Shifting, he took his stance again. Another poke to his stomach, just beneath his sternum. This isn't working, Kurai. He can't feel anything shifting, he can't see you. It's still not changing. Sighing, Kurai broke the jutsu off, pulled Naruto into a one-armed hug. Bunking his forehead with the bakken in the hand she had wrapped around, she pecked Naruto on the cheek. What was it that time? Still bright. Shrugging her off, Naruto shook his head in agreement. Their goal was to find a way for Naruto to detect anything in the mist. Sort of as a starting ground to removing its effects on him as a whole. Seijin stepped forward from the shadows, dwarfing Kurai's height. Perhaps you're just trying to blanket the mist. When you use your veil of energy it seems to fall on top of its surroundings. But why not try separating the energy as small as you can and blend it with the mist Kurai produces? As if a light bulb turned on, Naruto nodded in agreement, beginning to focus. He slowly felt the blinding pressure around him fall away. Slowly but surely he was able to make out the features of Kurai's hopeful face as she silently crept up to his front. With no sound to be heard, Kurai reached forward towards his groin. Rather than the teasing poke she expected, a hand found its way atop her left boob. Must we be so perverted, my dear Kurai? I thought we'd gotten plenty of that out of the air earlier. Squeezing, he patted her on the shoulder with his other hand. Standing up, Kurai frowned as she turned to look at Naruto past her shoulder. That was quick, Naruto, but I gotta say nicely done. I wasn't sure if you would get it right away. Too bad, cold have been fun. Just me, you and the water again. Winking, she bumped hips with him before she motioned for Seijin to give her a bottle of water. Taking a swig of water, she then squeezed the bottle out onto the stone of the floor. Motioning to Naruto, he got the clue and started reforming the mist. Now that you can see through it, you've completed part 1 of the silent killing technique. Naruto stilled his breathing for an instant before rushing through the mist, repositioning himself. Trying to distort his voice and throwing it, he spoke as he reached forward. Now comes part 2, he whispered to himself. The trick to part 1 was simply obfuscation of the enemy's visual sense. The second was the more difficult step, completely silencing every movement his body create. Well, this was in all sense a chakra control exercise. It was a matter of dampening the sound each of his moves made, like trying to capture a very fast insect before it could move again. Brushing Kurai's side, he lashed out with his bakken aimed for her side. Smiling, Kurai grabbed his wrist and pulled him into a kiss before twirling him away. Wide-eyed, Naruto jumped back and repositioned himself once more. That wasn't half bad, Naruto. You almost had it, but you forgot something. Centering his focus, he pondered what he might have failed to silence. Trying again, he appeared behind Kurai, aiming for her lower back, intent on hiding her spinal column. His body quickly twisted as Kurai booted foot lashed out and struck him beneath Naruto's shoulder. In an unfortunate twist, his upper arm made a sickening crack and the bone beneath shattered and ruptured, the skin making itself seen. Biting his tongue, Naruto sharply gasped as the pain coursed through him into his torso. Son of a bitch. Kurai's took a look of panic and guilt as she rushed to his side. Oh Kami, I didn't think that angle would be so bad. Naruto, I'm so sorry. She made to place her arm around his good side in an attempt to console him. Furrowing his brow, he shrugged away from her touch, the pain on his mind. Back off, I'm fine. Kurai flinched at his scathing tone. Her eyes widened briefly before narrowing as a red chakra began to surge from within the wound. Sickening sounds came from beneath the skin as Naruto's eyes widened in shock before slowly going into shock. His eyes rolling back into his head. As the chakra thinned out, the arm slowly repaired itself before it became a slow process. To Kurai it seemed he had tried to heal it with the potent chakra, but even after his consciousness faded, the arm continued to heal it, albeit much slower than before. Purple energy and now red chakra, what the hell is going on? Looking up, she noticed Seijin was kneeling on his other side. Meeting eyes, Seijin saw the unasked question. The root member shook his head as he made to lift Naruto bridal style, carefully avoiding the arm. This is to stay between us. Naruto has another more malicious power within himself that is still unaware of. Danzo-sama would very much like it to remain that way until it is absolutely necessary. Hefting the boy up once more, readjusting, he moved from the water-drenched room into the torchlit hallway. Looking back to Kurai, he frowned slightly before taking a gamble. You may have guessed it, but he's a Jinchuriki Mamachi-sama. The number 9 specifically. Her eyes softened as she thought back to her homeland of Kiri, images of the Mizukijigure coming to the fore of her mind. That is a terrible burden you place on a child, any child. Nodding, he began walking. Then you understand why Danzo-sama wishes to keep it from him for much longer. Naruto-sama has never asked, and thus Danzo-sama has never had to lie to him. Following into the base, Kurai grimaced as the arm finished healing itself and a wisp of red escaped the wound as it closed. Grimacing at a foul taste in his mouth, Naruto realized it was a blend of his saliva and blood. He hadn't realized how fast he bit his mouth shut. Running his tongue along his teeth, he flinched at the spark of pain. He bit the tip of his tongue off. Looking around after filing the mouth situation away, he noticed he was no longer in the root hideout. Instead, he was in a brick-walled passageway, thick tubes of blue, red and purple energy coursing over them. His eyes narrowed as he speculated about his dilemma. He couldn't have gone far as he was just beginning to heal his tongue, as he usually would any other wound. Arm included, as the skin was just starting to seal itself up. Frowning, he shook his head. Long ago he'd realized that he could coerce the wounds he received to heal faster. Every time was followed by red chakra bubbling up from his inner coils, Becker flooding the wound. And every time his anger boiled beneath him, only held back by the pain he suffered through as his body would reconfigure and squirm beneath his skin. Usually it would end with him falling unconscious from the shock as his nerves were played upon by lightning. This led Naruto to come to the conclusion he was dreaming or something similar. Humming to a crossing, he looked left and right. Breathing deeply, he tried to extend his senses. Left and right were nothing of note, but forward he felt something he couldn't quite put his thoughts on. It felt angry and bored. Or maybe angry because it was bored. Walking forward, he was met with a giant gate before him, a tag at its enter red seal. Calmly walking forward, his mind was assaulted by the same vision of red eyes like back and wave. Shaking his head, he tried to remove the uneasy feeling that entered his heart. Slowly a ruby red eye opened, practically piercing his soul. Another soon followed. A rumbling voice as loud as thunder reached his ears, making his body shiver. At long last I meet my jailer. Tell me, Ninjin, what pitiful failure brings you before me again? Trembling with excitement and fear, Naruto's right eyebrow quirked up at the question. Oh, dark entity, in my dream, I think I'd recall having met two giant glowing eyes before. A snort of amusement reached Naruto as he felt movement before him. With a sudden snap, fire erupted behind the being, peeling away the shadows that once concealed the creature. Before him stood a massive red-furred fox, 9 magnificent tails swayed across the bricks beneath their weight. Instantly it clicked for the teenage shinobi. The reason he was scorned by a majority of the village day in and day out. There was a tailed beast sealed within him. So that's how the yellow-haired bastard did it. Narrowing its brows, the fox glared at Naruto upon mentioning the fourth Hokage. Considering his relationship to Ninjin, I'd expect less of a bite when mentioning that man. Naruto felt the growl brush over him as the fox mentioned Minato. Harumping, Naruto shook his head as he spit on the brick floor. What relationship? I have no father, fox. The fox laid itself down, head resting upon its massive forearm. Laughing to himself, he nodded with amusement. You know, Ninjin Kushina Dono would be proud of you for that statement. Ming to himself, he barely noticed the tremble of Naruto's lip at the sound of his mother's name. How did you know my mother, beast? Naruto matched the 9-tailed beast's gaze. Raising his unbound hand, the fox motioned his claw to the seal above him. Then it clicked for the redeed. She was my previous jailer, a beautiful woman no doubt, but her temper left much to be desired. Naruto's face became sad, but it was quickly replaced by curiosity. He wanted to know more. Tell me about her. He demanded, but it was met with a bark of a laugh that echoed through the chamber. Ninjin, do not mistake my familiarity with your mother as compliance. You do not intimidate me, and you are far too weak to be demanding anything of me. Rising slightly, he reached a claw through the bars and scratched the brick in front of him. Growling, the fox penetrated Naruto's spirit with malice and hatred. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune, Kurama. I am the strongest of the tailed beasts, and you shall respect me as such, Ninjin, if you ever hope to wield my infinite power. Naruto began breathing deeply as purple energy enshrouded his figure before it erupted in purple flames, seals appearing across his body. I take what I want when I want it, Kurama, I am the master of myself. Unaware of his power unfolding and his anger leaking forth from him, chains shot all from the ground, purple and covered in seals they wrapped around Kurama's limbs and torso. Stepping forward, Naruto's power pulled Kurama towards him and the bars of his cage. Malice still seeping forward from him, Kurama glared at the boy. The situation reminded him all too much of his previous jailer. You think you can control me, that you can harness my power with force. But you will never reach my feet or gain my favor like this child. Not everything is available to those with power. The chains beneath Kurama's head branched and wrapped around his snout before his mouth closed with a snap. I did not permit you to speak. A rumbling laughter came from within the fox at Naruto's statement. The chains began to strain as the Kyuubi's body tensed beneath them. Slowly cracking, Naruto's eyes began to close as exhaustion rapidly took over, his restraints on Kurama weakening. Finally shattering, the Kyuubi slammed his furred hand upon the ground, throwing Naruto away from him with a shockwave. You are amusing, Ninjin, but remember this. The purple energy faded from Naruto's body as a chill bled into his soul. Whenever you fight, love or even eat, I will always be pulling your strings from the darkness. Your hatred is my hatred, and I control you. Closing its eyes, Naruto faded from his mind, anger tearing through him before he blacked out from fatigue. Chapter 7. Illness and Intrigue, Onward to Kusa. Thunder and lightning tore apart the sky as clouds churned wildly. Amidst the air, a beast floated through the storm, as if it was no more than a fish in an ocean. Naruto's brow furrowed as he watched the creature's shadow play across the clouds. Before he realized what was happening, the beast's amber eyes, shining, wheat piercing into his soul. Waking with a gasp, Naruto found himself in a medical bed. The vision of a mouth collapsing onto him merely a phantom sensation. Weird dream. Mumbling, he looked around, trying to figure out his location. As he slowly sat up, he could hear a roar fading from his mind until he wasn't sure if he had even heard it. A weird dream, how peculiar. Scratching his stomach he felt the telltale trappings of hunger gnawed him. Hopping his neck Naruto looked around the medical room he was in, noticing the absence of any others, he idly ran his tongue against his teeth. What would once elicit stabbing pain was a memory of yore. Ming to himself he glanced at his own arm, yup, like usual, and now I even have an explanation for it after all this time. He looked around once more, wonder where everyone is. Tapping her fingers with one hand Kurai shuffled her food around with the other, spoon bouncing back and forth between the bits of broccoli inside the bowl. Her mind clearly elsewhere she didn't even notice the small mess she was making. Kurai-sama, is the food not to your liking? The Ravenette's eyes darted to and fro as she snapped back from her spacing thoughts. Oh Nezumi-san, no it's fine. A mistake to be sure she mused to herself as the young woman furrowed her brows in distaste. How would you be so sure you've not taken more than a single spoonful since you got it? I watched. Kurai's previous woes forgotten, she tapped her cheekbone in a gesture of thought. Oh really Nezumi-san, and pray why would you be eyeing me up so particularly? Smirking Kurai watched with amusement as the Root's very own chef blushed deeply. I was not eyeing you up. You asked me to make you cheddar soup with broccoli, spiced up with diced chilies. You even said it was your favorite. Nodding Kurai leaned back from the table. Indeed, you have, and relax Nezumi I was just teasing you. The soup was fine. The brunette crossed her arms. If that's the case then why not finish it? Surely it's cold by now. It seemed strange that she would be requested to make such a specific meal and then watch it be left practically untouched. Something was off and she'd be damned if it was her cooking. Kurai chuckled, think nothing of it Nezumi-san. I've merely a bit on my mind at the moment. Last few chapters of my life have been quite short, this is simply the first moment I have actually been alone to ponder. Nezumi nodded in understanding. Sometimes life could be sudden and catch you off guard. Certainly so in the life of a shinobi. Ah well at least it's not the cooking. I'd never live it down if I made a bad meal. I have to keep all of our stomachs filled and our souls full after all. I owe it to Danzo-sama for giving me a chance, let alone a home and family. To the public eye Konoha was a rather lavish and happy village, but if you looked through cracks enough you'd see it was a facade. Broken wallets and broken bodies. If you weren't a shinobi your status didn't really matter. If you questioned Saratobi Hiruzen you either ended up dead or worse. For some, it just took longer to see the vial that was the Sandaime Hokage. You were an orphan I take it. Both Kurai and Nezumi looked towards the approaching form of Naruto, said individual's cheek bulging slightly as he ran his tongue around his mouth. Nezumi however nodded in response, yes Naruto-sama, my parents were part of the fallen that gave their lives to protect the village from the Kyuubi's rampage. A crestfallen gaze sat itself upon her face, eyes glancing away. Naruto's stomach ever so slightly felt different from the emotions that he gleamed from the petite chef before him. Of course he knew it wasn't his fault, but the fact that the entity responsible for it was mere feet away from her didn't lighten the mood regardless. If anything it stoked the fires of rage inside him. His dearly departed mother came to his mind. What would life be like with her beautiful soul in his life? No, instead he was left with only a picture and whispered stories of her legacy. All because of the fox inside his gut. I'm sorry to hear that Nezumi, many people perished that dreadful evening. Wiping tears from her eyes, she nodded before bowing sharply. Thank you, I think I'll take my leave for the moment need to collect myself. The brunette turned quickly to Kurai, peace enjoy your meal Kurai-sama, if either of you needs something Soba is in the kitchen for the rest of the evening. Frowning Kurai stirred her food yet again before gesturing for Naruto to join her. So it's spreading then? Danzo's face grew somber as he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his visible eye. Fu shook his head in affirmative, Torin matching the action. As of the most recent report the disease has afflicted 10% more of the population and half of that has succumbed to it. Danzo narrowed his eye at nothing, as if spiting something. Damn you Hiruzen, you wretch. Danzo stood from his chair grabbing his cane and the dossier on the top of his desk before exiting his office. What do you mean it doesn't look like a slug? It totally does. Kurai gave Naruto a look of exasperation, watching the Riti gesticulating at his food. Instead she pointed at her shark-like maw, I think it looks like a fish personally. Emphasizing her point, she snapped her teeth together at him. Naruto sighed looking back at his bowl of food, is it even safe to eat? I wish Nozomi was cooking right now. Poking his food you could almost hear it squelching unnaturally. Almost biting into a forkful of his food, whatever it actually was, Naruto's attention was stolen by Danzo's figure suddenly standing before him. Naruto I have a task I believe you could take care of expeditiously for your next mission. The Chin exams are coming up and I'd like to see you get more experience under your belt. Raising a red eyebrow Naruto reached out a hand for the folder Danzo was clutching in his grasp. Shouldn't this be something you have Fu or Torin deal with, seems something up their alley. Ming to himself a thought came to him. As a genin he needed a mission to be picked as a team and cleared by Kakashi so he could legally leave the village. How would they possibly get that lined up? As if to read his mind, Danzo beat him to the punch. We have means to get Kakashi on board with this operation. It took a multitude of owed favors from his Anbu days, but he'll be accepting this mission later this evening, as long as you're interested. Think of it as a test to yourself, you could save an entire village my boy, or leave it be and watch it waste away. The old man rubbed his scar across his chin, as I'd pondering something. This village in Kusa has a great deal of history to me and Hiruzen. I am all but certain this is the results of his machinations, just another attempt at being a thorn in my side. Hirai took note of the scowl on his face at the mention of the Sandaime. There was bad blood there, certainly. Seeing the look on her face, Danzo waved her off. You will not be accompanying them, 2 of my spies were recently found dead after failing to report back on a routine check-in. I will be sending you and Kari to deal with this matter. The look of annoyance crossed her features, crossing her arms. I don't work for free, Danzo, and her words were cut off as Naruto tugged her ear in reprimanding fashion. Leaning back after Naruto whispered to her in a hurry, she let out a huff of feigned irritation. Fine. Naruto, having returned briefly to the folder, closed it and stood up before handing it back to the seasoned shinobi. I'll get it taken care of, old man. With a nod, Danzo began to take his leave. Before exiting the far side of the nearly empty room, Danzo took pause. Turning his head one last time, he looked at Naruto's back as the boy made to clean up his meal. Thank you. Leaving the room at last, Naruto's shoulders sagged as he let out a sigh. Things in Kusa were going to get interesting, he reckoned. One could hear the hustle and bustle as travelers and shinobi alike made their way in and out of the office-like room designated the mission room. In said room, if one listened ever so closely, they could hear the sound of Iruka Yamino's teeth gritting as he watched another team come and go with their business. While he'd be one of the first to admit the importance of handling missions was quite high, damn if it wasn't boring sometimes. What he wouldn't give to be out in the field again honing his skills. His mind started to drift as his mind filled with thoughts of his future. He had once wanted to join the Anbu and claim all the prestige that came with, but he was pulled from his mental musing as the door opened once again as a shock of white hair was followed by Kakashi. Ooh, what a pleasant surprise, Kakashi, how are you? Iruka sat forward as he tidied his table, following in his footsteps. Kakashi's students all filed in after. It had been a few months since he'd last seen his precious students. He noted the headband across Naruto's eyes, causing his brow to narrow. Oh, you know, here and there, Iruka, if it's not a black cat, it's an old lady with groceries. Kakashi put his book away as he gave Iruka an eye smile. The Chunin chuckled with amusement as Kakashi poked fun at himself. What kind of mission are you for looking into today? Another D rank or perhaps something more challenging? I heard you guys ran into quite the struggle in Nami no Kuni. The moment he finished saying the country's name, he could visibly see Naruto's shoulders tense for the shortest of moments. Is that perhaps the reason behind the eye cover? Iruka wondered in speculation, not even remotely closed though he may be, yet he disregarded it nonetheless as Kakashi rubbed his shoulder as he nervously laughed. You could say that, I suppose. Iruka caught the tone in his voice, however, and moved to diffuse the tension that was building. Well, no matter, I'm sure whatever the experience, it was enlightening and tempered all of your abilities further. Always remember I'm proud of the 3 of you. Sakura blushed at the praise, Sasuke looked away to the floor. Yet Naruto was the only to reply as he nodded. Thank you, Iruka-sensei. While there were certainly many in the village that Naruto wished to see the life strangled out of, Iruka wasn't one of them. In all his time as a student, Iruka was ever the fair one, never giving in to cheating him on tests or exercises. He was a fair and kind-hearted man that only wished for his students to excel in this life of strife, murder and money. Hearing positive reinforcement from him was always welcome and refreshing. Shuffling scrolls around as he moved specific ones far out of their abelites, Iruka looked up at Kakashi. Is there anything particular you're looking to train them on, or a new place to see? Kakashi scratched his chin through his mask in feigned thought. What all do you have that is from out of the village lately? Nodding in understanding, Iruka tugged a box of scrolls over to him from the edge of the desk. Well, we have 3, there's one for a Nara clan delivery to Taki that is due in 2 weeks, we have one for an annual departure to the Valley of the End for repairs and upkeep, apparently there was a fight there recently, and some restoration of Madara Uchiha's statue, as Iruka wasn't able to finish his sentence, as Sakura became particularly excited at the notion of visiting the famous wonder. Stepping in front of Kakashi to get his attention, she started to plead to her sensei. Kakashi-sensei, please, I've always wanted to visit the battlefield of the Shadaime and Madara Uchiha. Kakashi chuckled as he looked at his starstruck student. Maybe Sakura, let's hear what else he has. Iruka continued at Kakashi's words, as I was saying, the site is in need of some maintaining, nothing too terrible, but it is out of the village. Suna recently had word that some angry Konoha traders are disputing a sale of goods that went wrong, and one of their ox was apparently either maimed or even outright killed. Though the information is a bit sketchy and mostly harmless, Suna said they believe a Konoha Nukenin might be at the head of it all. Just a rank and file chunin we had by the name Jotaro Ito that left a year ago. This one got Sasuke's interest like a fish to irresistible bait. Kakashi, why don't we go after the trader? It would be a chance to prove myself. Kakashi titled his head in thought before looking towards Iruka. None of these are the descriptions me and Naruto are looking for. I'd be careful, Sasuke, confidence is a slow and insidious killer. Sasuke grunted at Iruka's admonishing. I know, but nobody knows how good they truly are until they prove themselves. Iruka hummed at the notion, that might be true enough, but you can't prove anything to anyone if you run heedlessly into fighting just anyone and anything. I taught you better than this. Sasuke took a small step back at the comment. Yaoi were right, Iruka-sensei, sorry. Iruka waved it off, I understand wanting to better yourself, believe me, I do. But don't rush yourself. You have a magnificent sensei, take his counsel and flourish. This time Kakashi laughed as he rubbed the back of his neck, you flatter me, Iruka, but I'm just an ordinary jounin. Naruto never wanted to smash his head in more than in that moment. Fortune favored him in a sick way, for no one noticed him roll his eyes. Getting back to the topic at hand though, we have 3 more. Alas, the first is one I'm hesitant to hand out to your team. Unfurling the scroll, Naruto could feel the stamp of Kusa at the bottom as Iruka placed it on the table. Recently an illness has beset itself upon Kusa and its associated villages. While Kusa has managed to ultimately contain it, they believe it to be weaponized. A group was sent to investigate the first village where a now declassified project was taking place that was intended to cure an illness that's caused back local flora indigenous to Kusa. This is a C rank, but you'll be working alongside a single squad of Anbu specializing with biological diseases and such. One might question why a mission being handled by Anbu would ever be assigned to Genin, joining Sensei or not. Sakura did just that, why are we able to accept this if a squad's already handling it? That doesn't make sense. Iruka nodded in understanding. It's because Bear and his squad will more or less be doing the heavy lifting, your team will be delivering much needed aid in the form of perishables and medical supplies. Building up chakra, Iruka released a seal attached to the scroll, an even larger scroll slamming down on the table. While Kusa has apparently handled the disease well enough, they have asked us to provide them with any possible aid. Things may be iffy between Kusa and Konoha for the most part, but they have declared that aid from us would be returned with a renegotiation of our current treaty between us, favoring our end far more than it originally did. Sakura ruffled her perfect hair in exasperation. None too happy with the idea of having such an important mission on her shoulders. Meanwhile Sasuke was instead quite interested. Well team, what are your thoughts? I'm partial to this one myself. The village could use more allies, and this would promote more trade between the 2 villages. Reaching for the smaller scroll underneath, Naruto perused the contents before looking at Iruka. It doesn't say what our task would be specifically besides delivery on arrival. Just that we'd be helping. Helping with what? Iruka pointed further down the scroll's text. Well, they did say that for the most part everything is safe, there are a few villages that haven't been checked up on yet. They ask that you do this task so they can focus on the larger aspects of their territory and running damage control. Kakashi lightly pulled the scroll from Naruto's hands before giving it a look with his lone eye. Rolling it up, he nodded to himself. We'll take this one. You 3 haven't ever gotten to see another shinobi village, let alone a tour through more or less their whole territory. This would be great for you 3. To this Naruto nodded and Sasuke just shrugged. Sakura however pouted as Iruka stamped some papers before filing them away. Best of luck you 3, stay safe out there. Make sure you bring everything you need, but not too much. Don't forget your rations, oh and don't. Sakura interrupted the scar-faced man, we know sensei. We won't. Sagging back into his chair, Iruka laughed lightly. While it had been months since he'd seen them last, it had been years that he'd spent getting to know them and essentially raising them into the young adults they were becoming. With a nod to them, Team 7 left the mission room. Storm cloud sagging, full with water, one would be hard-pressed to see anything in front of their face. Amidst this deluge the sounds of footfalls in mud could be faintly heard as a young woman with black hair, almost darker than the night she found herself out in, ran from tree to tree. Squinting out from her cover she looked around before rushing from cover. Her breath faint, visible with each exhale, in the cold. She slammed into a tree, having thrown herself to cover. A kunai zipped through the air, so fast as to cut the rain visibly, but apparently not fast enough to surprise the young woman. Sliding around the tree, blood was faintly visible before being washed away. Grunting she lifted herself off the ground in a sprinting form. Hurtling over a dead tree she landed on wet grass, a bolt of lightning streaked across the pitch-black sky. The light revealed a coverless stretch of grass which disappeared off into a ravine, and if one were to glance back to the tree line, they'd find 4 figures dressed in black, the only contrast being their masks. White as bone. Exhausted, wounded even, the woman grit her teeth as she ran the distance. Kunai stabbed into the ground and past her figure as she ran for her life. With only a small stretch of land left she could hear it, rushing water. Muffled by the blankets of rain dropping on their heads, she could also hear the orders being shouted back and forth between the 4. She's going to try and jump, kill her already. Feet already leaving the ground, the lady in dirty, wet clothing fearlessly propelled herself into the chasm below. Lightning style. Landfall. The words, however muted by the rain, were still quite loud. But nowhere near as loud as the thunder that followed the massive bolt of lightning that pierced the woman's back and shot through her stomach midair. Eyes wide with horror, her body struck the water's surface before the raging torrent devoured her whole. The 4-figure cloaked by darkness reached the cliff's edge, gazing down into the once again pitch black of night. Trained eyes seeking out any sign of the woman's corpse. The tallest of the 4 made a gesture with his arm out. Spread out, follow the water and find me her body. If we fail to recover the asset, he'll kill all of us. The 3 accompanying figures nodded and were off without hesitation, disappearing with the use of shunshin. Tugging on a strap to a canvas bag, Kakashi nodded in approval at his trusty travel bag before looking over his team. Ready team? But the trio of confirmations, copy Nin Kakashi had turned to their present company. 4 members of Anbu stood before the 3 genin. The largest of the group nodded. We are as well, we should begin moving with haste however, a storm is building far north of Konoha and it's heading towards Kusa and Iwa. If we're fast we should be able to lead it into Kusa. Kakashi looked in said directions before turning to the bear-masked man. At your go. Bear turned before motioning to his squad as they shot off into the trees, keep up Team 7. Sakura's eyes widened at their speed before noticing her team's absence as well, stumbling she hoisted her pack before stuttering in surprise as she leapt into the treetops as well. Wait for me. Roaring thunder rolled across the chasm and the sunless skies above. Rushing water matched with its own outcry as it tumbled through the river in the ravine. Barely audible amidst the other noises a gasp could be heard. With sharp breathing the young woman blinked, her eyes clear, stars and dirt covering her vision. The downpour of earlier had lessened ever so slightly, but she was still hard-pressed to make out her current location. Moving her head, she recoiled in pain. The action quickly turned into a mistake as her body was struck this time not by lightning, but agonizing pain as if it were struck again. Reaching a shivering hand, she let her fingers creep across her blood-soaked torso intent on teasing the edges of her injury in inquiry and assessment. Unable to control her digits properly due to the current state of her nervous system, her hand slipped into the bloody wound. She cried out in agonizing pain as her mind finally caught up with her body. The burning of her nerves made her want to vomit and the stabbing pain of her abdomen left her head lighter than a feather. The pain rushed back and forth across her body however, grounding her in the moment, a cycle of anguish looping through herself like waves crashing on a beach. The pain ebbed only slightly, rolling to her right side she ran a quick diagnosis on herself. It pierced me. That fucker has some hell of an affinity, she mused to herself. Grunting and gritting her teeth she sat herself forward. Her mind ran through damage control ideas. Glancing to the water rushing next to her she frowned. Rolling over herself ever so much, she crawled to the torrent's edge. No time for giving in now, Mitoko. The ravinette grasped at the tatters of her blouse before tearing it off, exposing her torso fully to the elements. Upon her pale skin one could see a spattering of blemishes staining her skin, red streams of watered down blood crossing here and there. Grimacing at her own state of health, she washed the ruined clothing as best as she could. At least they cushioned the blow, she joked to herself, put off by the state of her body. As happy as she could be in her predicament, she wrapped the cloth around her arm temporarily before cupping her hands and proceeded to gingerly clean her abdomen. Taking caution with the holes in her flesh she grunted and repositioned herself. Glancing around herself she unraveled the fabric around her left arm, using it to instead wrap up her abs. With a painful exhale she tugged one last time on the makeshift bandage. Like sharpened knives the pain stabbed into her and she let out a muffled scream. Fuck. Laying her back against the flat of the rocks beneath her, she rested her right arm across her unprotected bust. Closing her eyes she began to collect her thoughts. I need to get back to Kusa and stay away from those 4 bastards. With another push of effort she pulled herself up before setting out. Rest in peace Kurosawa. May Kami take your soul gently. This rain is ridiculous, sensei. Kakashi's face sunk in a dejected fashion. Now, if you were as fast as our Anbu accompaniment we wouldn't be in this situation. He turned to Sakura with an sly eye, mocking her lightly. At first angry at the response, she instead grew merely bitter and sagged her shoulders. Next to them Naruto continued reading the forest ahead of him, his team leaping from branch to branch. He could faintly feel the Anbu squad up ahead of him, smoothly transitioning from tree to tree with minimal exertion. Mid thought he was broken from his thoughts as the Anbu broke formation and scattered, one retreating to them. Naruto pointed forward from beneath his cloak. "Kakashi, I think we have trouble." The silver-haired Jonin turned his head towards his student's direction. Sure enough, not much later, one of the Anbu rejoined them. "Haddock-san, we need to deviate from our original path." The man's words fell away as Naruto's head became filled with deep muttering, like indecipherable chanting of a choir was playing in his head. Clutching his head, his scarred eyes widened as he felt it, faint and almost as if it never reached the furthest tips of his reach. Looking up into the clouds above him, Naruto nearly slipped off the branch he stood atop. "What in the hell is that?" Kakashi strained his one visible eye, trying to see what Naruto had recoiled from. Then he saw it for himself. "Run. Now." Leaping from his position, Kakashi shot past Sasuke, the genin still on edge at his team's conversation, and scooped up Sakura before slinging her surprised figure over his shoulder. "Kakashi, what's going on?" As if to answer his own words, a terrifying roar rolled through the sky like thunder. "There hasn't been a sighting of one in countless ages," Kakashi muttered to himself. He was written in disbelief. Sasuke ducked under a branch, eyes furrowed as the rain increased ever more. "One of what?" The Anbu member joined Sasuke's position at his side. The rain pelted the man's mask as he looked Sasuke in the eyes. "The Matsumagitsuchi." The word put Kakashi further on edge. As the squad plus another continued to flee, Naruto's head filled with more and more chanting. "The Maga what?" If Sasuke didn't know better, he'd have sworn he heard the Anbu chuckle at the question. "Right, it's not so common these days, is it, Amatsumagatsukai?" Kakashi picked up after the Anbu. "It's an elder dragon, Sasuke, a very rare, very dangerous caste of creature up there with boss summons. Point of fact, Haddock-san, most summons are thought to have originated from much older and terrifying members like this creature above us. But to think some still exi." The Anbu's words came to a sudden stop as the group heard a wet thunk as Naruto's body fell from the trees and slammed into a lower branch, the reed having slipped from lack of concentration. Slumping up against the tree's trunk, Naruto kept his hand to his head, pressure building alongside the indecipherable sounds. As if a switch was flipped, however, it cleared. Instead, filling his mind with a deep masculine voice that boomed. "I can smell you, wielder of the darkness. You cannot run from me, your destiny is at hand, and my summoner will run from me no further. Yao, you were the thing from my dream, you tried to reach me from my sleep." Kakashi knelt down to Naruto, trying to shake the reed from his stupor, unaware of any conversation taking place. "Indeed, I was awoken from my slumber 12 years prior to this moment we share. The power of light and dark are out of sync. Kami herself has demanded that it be restored." Naruto raised a figurative eyebrow at the religious zeal this beast had. "Kami, you're kidding, right?" The dragon was less than amused. "I am quite serious, bearer of darkness. The goddess once watched over all of humanity, blessing your kind with countless boons, prosperity. I am not here to enlighten you of this world's history." The rain started to lessen, as did the sky serpent's volume, as if falling away. "In the land of blades you will find an individual that carries my mark. Seek them and claim my powers. Farewell, Dark Bear." Before Naruto could question the creature, the pressure faded from his mind and the world's touch returned to him. He felt Kakashi's hand on his shoulder. Shaking his head, he lightly brushed Kakashi's hand away. "I'm fine, that thing it spoke to me." The genin then gestured to his head, hand shaking slightly. The intrigued Kakashi just nodded at the teen and helped him to his feet. "Well, Amatsumagatsuchi has disappeared to who knows where while you were out of it. I think we should take a breather, today has been quite the day. What do you think, Chameleon-san?" Meeting Kakashi's gaze, he nodded before stepping back and gazing up at the canopy. Seeing an opening in the leaves, he sped through hand seals, and with a mighty exhale a string of fireballs shot off into the waning storm. Not much later, a burst of lightning strikes responded far off. Nodding with satisfaction, the masked shinobi stepped back onto the same branch as Team 7. "I signaled them our location and got confirmation, till then rest up. Doubt anyone can say they got to stand right underneath an elder dragon and live to tell the tale." Sasuke scoffed at the notion. "Last I checked, I accepted a mission to help an ally village, not get stalked by a lizard the size of my clan's lake." Sakura nodded in agreement. The situation still settling in her mind as her eyes ran over her sensei and Naruto off to the side. The redeed looked like her father during the morning after a fun night of drinking with his pals. Hungover and sick as hell. As if reading her mind, the boy leaned over the tree branch and emptied his stomach towards the forest floor. Pouting, she unslung her travel pack, rummaging through it until she eventually found what she was looking for. Closing the pack, she leapt onto the branch shared by Naruto and Kakashi. Kneeling, she reached for, gently so, his wrist and put a canteen with a small blue cross into his hands. "This should settle your stomach and soothe whatever is hurting your head." Hesitant Naruto uncapped the container and sniffed. It was a tea of some kind, but there was an underlying scent. Not dangerous he was sure, but off-putting for certain if one were to linger on it. Sakura giggled, noticing her teammate recoil slightly. It's a family recipe for hangovers that's been in my father's family for generations. I spruced it up a bit by adding a medicinal cocktail to it. Taking on a look of thought, she nodded to herself. It shouldn't taste too bad, and it helps with all sorts of issues internally, like helping ulcers heal, providing basic nutrition, and some other stuff that aids in performance. Naruto looked at Sakura then back at the canteen before chugging it down. He nodded thanks to his pink-haired companion and passed the bottle back. The redhead would be lying if he said he didn't feel better already. Having rested for some time, the Konoha shinobi once again resumed travel. After some time the group found themselves at an impasse, a large ravine running itself across their path. The rain had ceased for a moment, but one could still hear the rushing water beneath them. Sakura nervously chuckled at the wondrous sight. We're not gonna jump this, are we? Sasuke fed to the question. It's not that far, Sakura. Kakashi saved his hand in dismissal at the proposition. No, we won't be doing something so dangerous. With a storm the edges of the chasm would surely be risky. Wouldn't want one of my precious genin to fall to such an untimely death after all. Naruto, unwilling to stretch his side as far as possible, took their words at face value. He couldn't readily see the other side of the cliff face he stood on, and that was enough for him to not take an unhealthy interest in plummeting to his death. Grabbing their attention, one of the Anbu walked forward, porcelain ox mask dull in the budding sunlight. The second tallest of the squad gestured towards Kusa's general direction along the ravine. Paper managed to find some indicators up ahead that might indicate a fight of some sort. With the weather being as bad as it has, we figure it's best to alert you to a potential threat, as skeptical as Bear and Owl are. Kakashi stroked his chin. The possibility of rogues wasn't out of the question. It was unlikely to be Kusa shinobi with their current situation. It was certainly an oddity, but he'd be throwing away all of his experience if he denied that the life of a shinobi wasn't rife with unknown and ever-persistent dangers. Kakashi gave Ox a look, understood, alright Team 7 keeps your wits about you. A trio of nods were his response. Almost woven into the sound itself, the squad of black-clad figures leapt nimbly from surface to surface, white masks gleaming in the sunlight. One of them gave a hand signal and the group stopped on a dime. The very same member kneeled down on his very position, gloved hand running across the dirt and mud. Not a word was said as he raised a tattered strip of cloth to the rest of the team in presentation. The trio of nods met his action. However, before the team lead could make another move, the mud beneath his feet erupted without warning. Pale white arms reached from the ground's mouth and dragged the assailant to their presumed death. Motoko's half-baked form towered over the late assassin's grave. Mud caked her porcelain body, but even so one could clearly see the red markings shooting across her torso. The hellish markings reached between her breasts and grasped at the wound in her abdomen. A sealing array slowly twirled around the opening, dancing at the edges of her mortality. Following the seal back up its jagged lines, the marks formed a crest around her eyes, that of which were now a very well-known image. Two fully matured Sharingan blazed with fury and impatience. Fuck you, fuck your tracking and fuck your Hokage. With nary a moment to react, the Ravenet was set upon the closest Anbu operative, Fist of Fury planting itself into the guard of the shortest member. The other two Anbu rushed her, not hesitating in the slightest. One directly from her rear, the other leaping for the sky, kunai streaking through the air towards their target. The shortest of the trio somersaulted away from Motoko's amped-up assault. Kunai harmlessly sunk their fangs into the muddy floor of the ravine. Motoko's unhinged attack turned towards the now closest Anbu, her leg lashed out into the figure's shoulder. The following sound could be heard by all present as the bone gave way under the impact. Rolling with force, the Anbu braced themselves as they struck the ravine wall, left dazed however they struggled to stand immediately. Now landing near Motoko, the third attacker pulled back their fist as a glint in the air flashed, the drawing on the faintest of signals. Motoko's eyes still caught the pathing of the impending danger presented to her. A puff of smoke covered the trap-casting Anbu's eyes, when it cleared the now headless figure of the dazed Anbu member met their gaze. At the instant the body crumpled, Motoko attempted to grab the trapcaster's legs, as she had the first of the four. Either more agile or more aware with adrenaline, the trapcaster not only avoided the Kunoichi's grasp, but retaliated. Grabbing her wrist, the man tugged her from the mud and rock before launching her at his sole remaining ally. The Anbu in question had her blade ready for a death blow. Instead, however, Motoko used her Sharingan to read the blade's angle, kicking an eruption of stone and debris with enough force her body twisted before being skewered. All of this happening within a few moments. The blade-bearing Anbu wasn't prepared for the split-second reaction as Motoko bore the pain of a second stabbing and instead took her new victim's arm in hand, placed her foot to their shoulder and pulled. The mud at their feet was covered with precious lifeblood as Motoko took the Anbu's now misplaced arm and discarded it. In shock, the brunette assassin stumbled away from Motoko towards their appendage of yore. The trapcaster, however, had not been sitting idly. Leaping after his human projectile, he was met with the aftermath of the bloodbath as Motoko turned on the last functional assassin. The newly brandished kunai found itself thrust into the ravenette's back. Having turned a mite too short, the shining metal slid through her skin and back out, a glancing blow. The Anbu, being now clearly faster than the rest of his cohorts, swapped hands with which that metal implement was held. Lightning chakra sparked from the weapon as it sliced up her back, missing her spine, but casting a Lichtenberg scar across Motoko's skin. Following shortly after with her seal flaring brightly on her skin, Motoko's turning finished the woman's eyes blazing red, but not the same color as the blood that sprayed forth from the Anbu's neck, her hand rigid and deeply thirst forth into his throat. Clearly a cut above the rest, the Anbu did not topple over at the onset of the wound. Instead, he grabbed the appendage and leveraged the limb against Motoko, pulling another kunai out and jabbing it forward at her head. In that same moment, Motoko's Sharingan allowed her to perceive the attack like child's play. Her free hand shot up, almost too slow, intercepting the blade with her palm. As fast as the blink of an eye, the woman fisted the Anbu's grip, used her foot to swiftly kick the side of their left knee, ruining their balance and bringing their height lower. With that action finished, it was followed by Motoko using her now free arm to chop into the Anbu's elbow, allowing her left hand to slam the kunai into the Anbu's temple against their will. Firmly, she made sure the kunai was deeply embedded before pulling it out and removing her wounded hand. She then shoved the man's body away from her, the corpse seemingly defying gravity and thus fighting death yet more before it toppled. Eyes darting around, she found the injured Anbu dead, shock having done them in, arm clutched to their bosom. Chest expanding and compressing with rapid breaths, her body moved on autopilot towards her home. Not 5 steps away from the fight, the seal across her bare torso shattered away from her like glass. All the wounds thus far collected, once held in a stasis of sorts, began to take their toll from Motoko's body. The makeshift bandage that once held her together was now drenched with her life. Falling to her knees, she was unconscious before she collapsed on her side. All forms of creatures, having long since ran for self-preservation, left the drained ravine disturbingly quiet, making it easy for one to hear the sound of approaching footsteps. Leading the group of 8, Bear slowly approached the battlefield remains. "Seems you were right, Bear-san, there were people ahead of us, and the sounds of battle were this engagement." Bear nodded to Kakashi's remark. The towering shinobi surveyed the deceased Anbu members. It wasn't unheard of to come across other squads out in the wild. What perturbed him was that this wasn't a squad he'd dispatched. As acting commander while Crow was on leave, he'd been the one to send all 8 standing squads to their current objectives. The most likely to be completed first, still weeks away from check-in. None of which were even remotely close to Kusa. Disregarding that fact, making a cross with his fingers, he created a shadow clone, sending them to inspect the dead individuals. Naruto slowly joined the man at his side as the shadow clone slowly searched through the corpses for important dossiers or any other sort of valuable intel that could be stripped from their person. Naruto stretched his senses over the blood-soaked floor. He could feel the corpse stuck in the rock beneath them. As his energy reached a half-naked woman, his eyes narrowed. She was very nearly dead, easily enough to miss by any traditional observation. He, however, could feel the spark of life in her heart, refusing to give up, but not enough chakra or bodily energy to fuel it back past its point. Curious though cautious, he raised his hands as he kneeled next to her. Rolling her over, he paused for a second at the sight of her vulnerable person. She was clearly attractive and her bust was rather well endowed. Moving away from hormonal adolescent thoughts, he took a deep breath before casting the mystic palm jutsu. Placing his hands carefully between her breasts, he began funneling healing chakra into her body. Grimacing at the flares of crimson around the green shimmering aura, he grit his teeth as he fought off the Kyuubi's interference. "Your timing is garbage, Fox." Pushing the presence of the beast from his mind and focusing intently on positive emotions, the crimson started fading away. Thoughts of Kurai brought a hint of a smile to his face even. Sakura's eyes widened as she saw the wounds and bruises slowly diminish as the medical ninjutsu worked its power through her aches and ailments. Though they never truly went away, they were a sight better. The faint coloration returned to her skin as blood cells refilled her veins, certainly nothing significant, but far better than worse. Naruto removed his hand, scanning her spark of life, and noticed it was brighter than before. Adjusting his neck with some head movements, he resumed his work, placing his hands around the fist-sized wound in her abdomen. Knitting the flesh together and doing his best to maintain the proper positioning of her innards, his brow began to sweat into his headband. Learning minor medical jutsu from Tetsuo may have been a pain, but he'd be damned if he didn't consider it useful now. He did, however, scoff at the thought healing anyone from the leaf. With another few moments passing, he idly noticed Sakura sitting on her knees next to him as she watched his ministrations. She'd always been interested in medicine and the history of healing, personally being in awe of the San and Tsunade's Senju and her prowess in the means of helping the human body persist against death and its devices. Seeing her team member capable, or at least appearing capable, of utilizing healing ninjutsu reduced the animosity she had for the Redeed, instead impressing her. The wound setting in their final state of repair, Naruto leaned backwards, the rewards of exhaustion teasing at the fringes of his mind. Letting out a breath in satisfaction, he reached towards the woman in preparation of rolling her on her side. The tattered remnant of clothing covering her nether regions fell away from her. Blushing at the state of undress, he swallowed before steeling his emotions. Sakura narrowed her eyes, watching Naruto's hands carefully, ready to wallop him across the back of his head if he got too familiar with a stranger. Her worries were struck from her mind when the hand Naruto had reached out with was grasped at the wrist before being yanked forward in the blink of an eye. Embarrassment being the last thing on his mind, Naruto found his face placed against her womanhood as he struggled against the triangle choke he was placed in. Anger welled up in him as adrenaline pumped through his veins. Water uncorked from its crystal container as he gripped at her derriere and the ground beneath her, trying to release himself from her clutches. Motoko's grip tightened as she felt his fingers probe and prod her flesh, trying to find a hold to free himself. Her eyes darted frantically as she gazed around, trying to resist the sensations of the Redeed struggles against her sensitive parts and the suffocating presence of exhaustion that racked her body as an effect of the death seal she'd written upon herself. A seal that should have killed her. Obviously fatigued, her mind deprived and suffering a loss of energy, slowly Motoko's grip weakened before she fell unconscious, water touching against her skin, nearly wrapping around her joints and neck. Breaking free from between her legs, Naruto scrambled from the woman's body. On guard and ready for a follow-up, his chest heaved as he struggled to get oxygen back into his body rapidly. Bear stood next to him a few feet away, avoiding the water that curled and coiled in defense. Facing Naruto, he nodded as Kakashi and Sasuke joined him. Kakashi chuckled slightly as he thumbed through his copy of Icha Icha. Think that was a bit more hands-on than you were expecting, or should I say face-on? Naruto's face flushed red. It wouldn't do to be done in that manner. Strangled by would certainly be legendary in some circuits of the shinobi world. Putting his book away, Kakashi's face tightened in a serious manner as he pulled a length of rope from his pouch. If she's the one who killed this squad of Anbu, I think it's best we restrain her for the time being. Kusa is still a few days away. We can question her once she wakes. Bear nodded in agreement at the decision. Actually, Kakashi don't know, me and my team will carry on. This ordeal has revealed information that I need to convey to my team. Between that and a change in operational plans, we can't delay further. Send Kusa my regards. Kakashi glanced at the scroll Bear held in his hands, then back at Bear's eyes through the mask, before nodding. Good luck on your mission then, Bear-san. But that bear, ox, wolf and tapir disappeared, Anbu corpses crackling into bright flames of disposal. Alright my cute genin, let's set up a shelter and camp. When she wakes I'll teach you three the important skill and art of interrogation. Even Sasuke raised an eyebrow in intrigue as he pulled a ration bar from his pack and sat down. Glancing at the woman, he shook his head, watching Kakashi-sensei cover the woman's tied-up and naked body with an emergency blanket before placing another under her head. Naruto sat next to Sasuke as the two watched as Sakura used flint to start a campfire just a bit ahead of them. What a weird mission so far. Sasuke just dumbly nodded in response. Naruto scratched his arm idly as his mind played out the embarrassing scenario, a similar scene running through his mind of memories since past. Sharing the shower with Kurai was a memory he'd hold onto for a long while. But the two events were dredging up memories he wasn't sure what to make of. Flashes of Makoto's face filled his head. Candles flickered in the memory, her body nude yet shrouded by darkness. Naruto frowned as the memory fell away at the prodding to his foot placed conducted by Sasuke. "Are you alright?" The words seemed simple enough, but for Sasuke they were a monumental effort to enunciate. However, it backfired immediately. Naruto's eyes narrowed in repulse at the intrigue. "Not that it's your matter, but I'm fine." Sasuke's fist clenched at the bite back. "Suit yourself, freak." Naruto stood to his feet, reaching for Sasuke's collar. Sasuke stood to meet his action with a fist. Neither finished their actions as Sakura proceeded to hit both of them over the head, while Naruto's water harmlessly pushed the fist away. Sasuke got slapped across the back of his head. "Both of you shut up." Naruto and Sasuke eyed the other up before both crossed their arms and turned away from one another, each going their own way in the small camp Kakashi had begun setting up. Now you two, it almost seemed like you two were getting along." Naruto scoffed at Kakashi's comment. As if. As Bear and his squad leapt through the treetops, the man was lost in his thoughts. He was concerned with the discovery they'd clearly chanced to cross. If the mysterious naked woman they'd restrained hadn't put up such an impressive fight, there would likely not be a trace of the Anbu squad, imposters at that. While the woman looked familiar, he couldn't remember just where the face and hair were in his memories. That and the missive they'd found left the acting commander troubled. They weren't his men, which only meant they were fools masquerading as men they shouldn't be. Or worse, validating rumors, the Sandane death dealers. Crow had been subtly hinting to his next in line for a while now. Never overtly giving any information between coded words as well as body language that only a student and teacher would be able to convey from one another. Bear narrowed his eyes. Something was off, that he was certain of. First things first, once this mission is not so in the books, I'll confront Sarutobi over my suspicions. There is no place for crossing lines of communication when it comes to the village's safety. The Hokage himself is no exception. Bear mused to himself as he checked over his team, confident in their loyalty and abilities. I'll send word for Crow to join me, then speak with Sarutobi. What is the worst that could happen when Konoha's finest shinobi confronted him with myself? What if Naruto X Fem's abuse of Konoha? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.